The Admiral's hand snapped to his forehead in perfect salute, and 500 sailors froze like statues. But he wasn't saluting an officer. He was saluting an 85-year-old man in a visitor's jacket, the same man a Marine had just tried to throw off the ship. In that moment, every insult, every sneer, every mocking laugh hung in the air like smoke from a fired gun. Because they'd just learned the truth. Some men don't need a uniform to be legends. Before we dive in, hit that subscribe button and stay with me until the very end of this story. You won't believe where this goes. And drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this tale travels. The emergency alarm screamed. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Chen felt her stomach drop before her brain caught up. The deck plates under her boots had stopped vibrating. The carrier's heartbeat was gone. Reactor 2 offline. The voice cracked across the bridge. Primary cooling loop failure. Chen grabbed the nearest comm. Rodriguez, talk to me. Chief Engineer Rodriguez stared at his screens. 20 years in the Navy, and he'd never seen this. Every backup was dark. Every redundancy had failed. Commander, we're dead. His voice shook. Batteries give us 8 hours. Maybe. 8 hours until what? Until we're a 40-million-pound paperweight floating in hostile waters. Captain Morrison's voice cut through. Options, Rodriguez? Sir, Rodriguez's hands hovered over the keyboard. He didn't move. Couldn't move. I don't know. And right there, remember that moment. Because that's when everything changed. Corporal Jake Evans slouched into the reactor room like he owned it. Heard we got a problem. Chen turned on him. Unless you suddenly became a nuclear engineer, Corporal, get out. Just saying, ma'am. Lots of standing around for an emergency. Chen took a step toward him. Evans straightened up, but not before he'd said enough to mark himself. You're going to want to remember Evans. Trust me on this. Rodriguez's comm crackled. Commander, we've got a civilian requesting access. Says he can help. Says he used to work on carriers. Chen closed her eyes. We're in crisis, and someone wants a tour. No, ma'am. Ensign Miller says it's his grandfather, Richard Marrow. Says the name should mean something. Rodriguez looked up fast. Marrow. You know him. There's a procedure named after him in the manual, Emergency Override Protocol from the 60s. Chen rubbed her temples. The temperature was climbing. The clock was ticking. Fine, send them down. Evans snorted. Grandpa's gonna save the day. This should be good. Keep watching. You'll see just how good. 10 minutes later, Richard Marrow walked in. Evans saw an old man, 5'9" thin visitor's jacket hanging loose, hands shaking, eyes watering behind wire-rimmed glasses. Behind Richard Ensign David Miller hovered like a nervous parent. Evans couldn't help himself. This is the expert. Richard didn't answer. He was looking at the reactor compartment like a man seeing an old friend. His trembling hand reached out, touched a pipe. His fingers traced the metal. Mr. Marrow. Rodriguez extended his hand. Your grandson says you might help us. Tell me what happened. Rodriguez explained the cascade failure. Digital lockouts. Dead systems. 8-hour countdown. Richard nodded slowly. His hands stayed on the pipe. You tried the digital override, so first thing. Secondary control. Locked out. Emergency protocols. Nothing responds. Richard was quiet. Then, you need to bypass the digital systems. Use the mechanical overrides. Rodriguez blinked. Sir, these are modern reactors. There are no mechanical overrides. Yes, there are. With respect, I've worked this ship 3 years. I know every system. You know what they taught you. Richard's voice stayed soft. Not what they built. Evans laughed out loud. Actually laughed. Oh, this is rich. The old man knows more than the chief engineer. And here's where you need to pay attention, because what happens next, it changes everything. Corporal Evans. Chen's voice could freeze water. Shut your mouth. But Evans was rolling. Youth and arrogance toxic mix. No, seriously. We've got the most advanced carrier in the fleet, and Grandpa here thinks he knows something our engineers don't. David Miller's face went red. Corporal, show some respect. Respect? Evans pushed off the wall. Kid, your grandfather is 85 years old. Technology moved on since he was changing vacuum tubes. No offense, old-timer, but leave this to professionals. Richard said nothing. Just turned back to the pipe, his shaking hand steady against the metal. You think you know where this is going? Keep watching. Rodriguez cleared his throat. Mr. Marrow, I appreciate this, but the corporal has a point. These systems are nothing like the old ships. Not everything changes. Richard's voice was distant. The hull is still steel, the ocean is still water, and men still panic when the lights go out. The temperature climbed another degree. Somewhere deep, batteries bled away. Time was running out. Chen made a choice. Mr. Marrow, if you can help, we're listening. I need paper schematics. Rodriguez actually laughed. Sir, we haven't used paper in 20 years. Everything's digital. Check the archives. Every ship carries physical backups. It's regulation. Rodriguez looked at Chen. Chen shrugged. Peterson checked the archives. Original construction plans. While Peterson ran, Evans couldn't resist. So what's the plan? You're going to look at yellowed paper and fix 21st century tech. You even know what a computer is. David stepped forward, fists clenched. Corporal, I'm warning you. Warning me? You're an ensign, 6 months in. Your grandfather's claim to fame is probably rewiring radios in World War II. Remember what I said about Evans' watch, what happens to him? It's going to hurt. Richard turned to look at Evans. Not angry, just tired. Corporal, how old are you? Said 22, sir. 22. Richard's hand trembled on the pipe. I was 23 when I first crawled into a reactor compartment. USS Enterprise CVN-65. First nuclear carrier in the world. We didn't know what we were doing half the time. The room went quiet. One day the reactor nearly killed 5,000 men. Fire in the steam line. Temperature hit 700 degrees in 90 seconds. The reactor was going to breach. We had 3 minutes before that ship became a floating Chernobyl. Nobody moved. You know what saved us? Not computers. Not advanced technology. One man who knew where the manual shutoff was and was willing to crawl through steam to reach it. Chen's voice came soft. Who was the man? Richard's hand stayed on the pipe. Someone who understood that the men who built these ships always left a way to fix them when technology failed. And you need to stay with me here because this is where it gets intense. Peterson ran back with a metal tube. Dust covered it. He pulled out massive yellowed sheets 4 feet by 6 feet covered in lines and notations. Richard stepped to the table. His trembling stopped. His hands moved across the paper like a pianist finding his keys. There. His finger hit a notation. Service Access Panel Deck 3 Section 42. Behind it is the mechanical bypass for the primary cooling loop. It's a fail-safe from the original design. Rodriguez leaned over. His eyes went wide. I'll be damned. I've walked past that panel 1,000 times. It's marked as structural reinforcement, Richard said. But the bypass is there. It's always there. Chen grabbed her radio. Welding team to Deck 3 Section 42, now. Evans crossed his arms. So we're taking orders from the visitor now. Corporal Evans. Chen's voice went cold. Help or get out? Ma'am, I'm just saying this is insane. We're listening to a senior citizen who can barely hold a pen. David snapped. That senior citizen saved more lives before you were born than you'll meet in your career. Show some damn respect. Or what? You'll write me up. He's not even military. Just some old civilian playing hero. If you're wondering why I keep focusing on Evans, you'll understand in about 10 minutes. Keep watching. Richard raised his hand. Small gesture. Everyone stopped. Corporal, how old are you? 22. I was 23 when I saved the Enterprise. You think age makes you wise. But I learned something in 62 years. Pride doesn't keep lights on. Knowledge does. And knowledge doesn't care about your uniform. He turned back to the schematic. Now you can keep talking, or you can help these engineers before this ship becomes an expensive drift. The welding team cut through Deck 3, 20 minutes to expose the bulkhead. When the panel opened, Rodriguez's jaw dropped. A service tunnel, 3 feet wide, manual valve wheels, mechanical gauges that looked ancient. "My God," Rodriguez whispered. "It's like stepping back in time." Richard appeared at his shoulder, breathing hard. Not back in time. Back to basics. This is what you build when you know computers fail. Evans peered into the tunnel. Those valves haven't been touched in 30 years. They could be seized. Could be corroded. Opening them could cause a steam explosion. Could, Richard agreed. That's why you need to know what you're doing. And you do? Richard started removing his jacket. Chen stepped forward. "Mr. Marrow, what are you doing?" "Someone has to go in and manually restart the cooling loop. Someone who knows which valves to open and in what sequence." "Sir, you're 85 years old. That tunnel is hot, tight, dangerous. We'll send an engineer." "Commander, your engineers don't know these systems. They've never worked manual overrides. They've never balanced a cooling loop by hand. If they get it wrong, they don't just fail, they could cause catastrophic failure." Rodriguez shook his head. "He's right. I wouldn't know where to start." And here's the first big twist. Pay attention. Richard reached into his pocket, pulled out a small brass tool, worn smooth, like it had been carried for decades. "This is a valve key," Richard said, holding it up. "Custom made for emergency shutoffs. You can't turn them by hand. You can't use a regular wrench. You need this." Evans stared. "You carry that in your pocket?" "I've carried it for 62 years, since the day they gave it to me on the Enterprise. Since the day I crawled through steam and saved a ship." The words hung like a challenge. David grabbed his grandfather's arm. "Grandpa, please, let someone else—" "David, some things you can't delegate. Some things you do yourself because you're the only one who can." Richard patted his grandson's hand. "Your grandmother would understand. Grandma would kill me for letting you do this. Your grandmother was a nurse on a hospital ship. She understood duty." Rodriguez handed Richard a flashlight and radio. "Sir, if you feel lightheaded, if anything feels wrong, you call out. We'll pull you back." Richard clipped the radio to his belt. Then, with a grunt that betrayed every one of his 85 years, he climbed into the tunnel. The last thing they saw was his hand gripping that brass valve key. Chen keyed her radio. "Captain Morrison, we've initiated manual override. Mr. Marrow is attempting restart from the mechanical access tunnel." Morrison's voice came back tight. "Commander, tell me we're not betting the ship on an 85-year-old civilian." "Sir, we're betting it on the man who wrote the procedures we depend on." Inside the tunnel, Richard crawled forward. Heat pressed in. His joints screamed. His breathing came short. But his mind was clear. He'd been here before. Not this tunnel. Not this ship. But this moment. The moment when everything depended on one person doing one thing right. His radio crackled. "Mr. Marrow status." "First junction." His voice stayed steady. "I can see the valve. Corroded, but it'll turn." "Temperature." Richard glanced at an analog gauge. 115 degrees. Warm but manageable. Outside, Evans paced. "This is insane. We're trusting our lives to a man who probably can't work a smartphone." David rounded on him. "That man helped build the nuclear navy. While you were learning to tie your shoes, he was teaching engineers how to keep reactors from melting down." "Help how I'm not an engineer." "Then get out of the way. Stay with me. What happens next? You won't believe it." Richard reached the first valve, seized with rust. He fitted the brass key and pulled. Nothing. He pulled harder. His muscles trembled. Still nothing. "Come on," he whispered to the metal. "I know you. Work with me." He adjusted angle, braced his feet, pulled with everything he had. The valve key slipped. He barked his knuckles against the wall. Drew blood. "Mr. Marrow," Rodriguez's voice concerned. "You okay?" Richard looked at his bleeding hand, then at the valve. "Just getting reacquainted. They're stubborn like me." He wiped blood on his pants, reset the key. This time when he pulled, something gave. Tiny movement, barely there, but there. He pulled again. The valve wheel groaned metal on metal rust, breaking, and began to turn. First valve opening. He cranked it counterclockwise. Flow should resume in 30 seconds. Rodriguez watched his gauges. Pressure rising. My God, it's working. Evans stared at screens. How is this possible? Because some men, Chen said quietly, built these ships to last. And you need to hear what Richard said next because it's going to matter later. Richard was already moving deeper, temperature climbing 120, 125. Sweat soaked his shirt. His hands shook from exertion and heat. At the second valve, he found the problem. Someone had installed a digital sensor over the manual controls. The housing blocked access. Rodriguez, I've got an obstruction. Digital sensor over the manual controls. Can you remove it? Richard studied it. Security bolts. Tamper-proof. Not without tools. But there should be a secondary valve 6 feet left. Secondary valve, sir, that's not on any schematic. It's on the original plans, the ones before the retrofit. Trust me. Richard crawled left, squeezed through a junction barely wider than his shoulders. His age, his size, suddenly an advantage. A younger man couldn't fit, and there it was, hidden behind cables, almost invisible. A valve wheel, brass tarnished black. When Richard wiped it clean, he saw the manufacturer's stamp 1962. Found it. Wonder filled his voice. Valve from the original Enterprise. They salvaged parts for the Ford-class prototypes. He fitted his valve key, the same key that had opened this valve's twin 62 years ago, and turned. This time the valve moved smooth, like it had been waiting all this time to be called back to service. Second valve open. Flow should. Steam exploded from a crack in the pipe next to Richard's head. He jerked back. Hot vapor scalded his shoulder through his shirt. He bit back a scream. Steam leak, Rodriguez shouted. Mr. Marrow, get out. But Richard didn't move back. He moved forward, toward the leak. His hands found the crack by touch. Hairline fracture, decades of thermal expansion, small but enough to vent critical pressure. I need to seal this. Sir, evacuate. We'll find another way. There is no other way. Pain ripped through his shoulder. He bit down, tasted blood. If pressure drops, the loop won't restart. Hand me thermal tape from the emergency kit. David grabbed the kit, pulled out tape, hesitated. Grandpa, I'm coming in. David, you won't fit through the junction. I barely fit. Just hand me the tape. Miller passed it through. Richard caught it. His burned shoulder screamed. He wrapped the crack with shaking hands. Applying thermal tape in a steam-filled tunnel with burned hands was like surgery in a hurricane. 1 wrap, 2, 3. The steam hiss diminished. 4 wraps. 5. The steam stopped. Leak sealed, pressure stabilizing. Rodriguez watched his screens like watching a bomb timer. Pressure holding, temperature dropping. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. And now, right now, we're coming to the big moment. Don't look away. Richard crawled to the third valve, the final one. The master control for the primary cooling loop. This was it. This valve would either restart the reactor or cause a surge that could damage the core permanently. His hands shook badly now. The burn throbbed. He was 85 years old, alone in a dark tunnel about to turn a valve controlling an atomic reaction, and he'd never felt more certain in his life. This is it, he said into the radio. When I open this valve, the cooling loop restarts. If I calculated correctly, the system stabilizes and the reactor comes back online. If you haven't, Chen asked. Then we all find out together. Rodriguez, be ready at your station. When flow resumes, you've got 30 seconds to bring digital systems back online before mechanical override locks out. Can you do that? I'll be ready. Richard positioned his valve key. His hands were slick with blood and sweat. The brass felt warm, warm from his body, warm from memory, warm from history. He thought of the Enterprise. He thought of a young man crawling through steam. He thought of 5,000 sailors who never knew how close they'd come to dying that day. He thought of his wife, gone 5 years now, who'd always said he had a gift for being in the right place when the world needed him. Okay, old friend, he whispered to the valve. One more time. He turned the key. 3 seconds. Nothing. Then the ship shuddered. Deep in the reactor core, coolant began to flow. Temperature gauges flickered. Pressure equalized. The carrier's heart began to beat. Flow restored, Rodriguez shouted. Reactor temperature dropping. System stabilizing. Bringing digital controls online now. His hands flew across the keyboard. Error messages cleared. System checks turned green. Backup batteries began recharging. Throughout the ship, lights flickered and steadied. Ventilation hummed. Computers rebooted. The USS Gerald R. Ford, dead for 3 hours, was alive. On the bridge, Captain Morrison stared at displays coming back online like stars at dusk. Status: Reactor 2 online and stable, sir. Reactor 1 in standby. All systems nominal. Sir, we're back. Morrison grabbed his cap. Commander Chen, I'm coming to engineering. I want to meet the man who saved my ship. In the tunnel, Richard lay on his back, gasping. Adrenaline fading. Every year of his age crashed down at once. His shoulder burned. His hands bled. His heart hammered like it was trying to escape. Mr. Marrow. Rodriguez's voice came gentle. You did it. The ship is saved. Can you make it back? Richard tried to move, gasped in pain. Give me a minute. I'm not as young as I used to be. Take your time, sir. But then footsteps in the tunnel. Someone coming. A flashlight beam cut through darkness. Then David Miller was there, crawling toward his grandfather, despite the heat, despite regulations, despite everything. Grandpa, David's voice broke. I'm getting you out. David, I told you. I don't care. You just saved 1,100 people. Let me save you. Together, grandfather and grandson crawled back. Richard's body was failing, but David's youth carried them both. When they emerged into the reactor compartment, the entire crew was waiting. And they were silent. Not mockery, not doubt. The silence of respect. Rodriguez stepped forward, offered his hand. Mr. Marrow, I owe you an apology. We all do. You saved this ship. Richard, supported by his grandson, shook the engineer's hand. You don't owe me anything. I just remembered what we built. What we all built together when we didn't know better than to believe we could do the impossible. Chen approached. Her professional mask cracked just enough to show something human. Sir Medical is on the way for that burn, but I need to tell you what you did today will be in the record books. Richard smiled, tired, pained, somehow content. Commander, I don't need to be remembered. I just need to know the ship is safe. Evans stood in the corner. The swagger was gone. The arrogance had evaporated like steam. He looked at Richard, really looked, and saw something he'd missed. He saw a hero. But the moment wasn't over. Because right then the reactor compartment door burst open. 5 Marines entered at attention. Behind them walked a man in an Admiral's uniform, chest covered with ribbons, face set in stone. Admiral Thompson had arrived. The compartment snapped to attention. Every sailor, every engineer, every Marine stood rigid. Thompson's eyes swept the room, the open panel, the emergency equipment, the exhausted engineers, and in the center, an old man in a burned visitor's jacket, held upright by his grandson, bleeding and trembling and unbowed. Thompson walked directly to Richard Marrow, stopped 3 feet away. Mr. Marrow. The Admiral's voice carried command weight. I heard what happened. I came as soon as I could. Richard straightened as much as his body allowed. Admiral, just doing what needed to be done. Thompson's jaw clenched. Then, to the shock of every person in the room, his hand rose in a perfect salute. The sharpest, most precise salute any of them had ever seen. Petty Officer Marrow. Thompson used a rank most people hadn't known Richard held. On behalf of the United States Navy, thank you for your service. Then, and now. Richard's shaking hand rose to return the salute. In that gesture, 62 years collapsed into a single moment. The young sailor and the old man merged. Past and present connected. Every person watching understood they'd just witnessed something bigger than themselves. Evans felt his stomach drop. Petty Officer. The old man had been. Navy Thompson held the salute. Then he lowered his hand and turned to face the crew. Do any of you know who this man is? His voice could cut steel. Do any of you know what he did? Silence. 62 years ago, Richard Marrow was a 23-year-old petty officer on the USS Enterprise, the first nuclear carrier, the pride of the fleet. And one day that ship nearly became a nuclear disaster. Thompson's eyes found Evans, held him. Fire broke out in the reactor compartment. The temperature spiked to 700 degrees in 90 seconds. The reactor was going to breach. The ship had 3 minutes before 5,000 men died in a nuclear meltdown. Evans couldn't look away. And do you know who saved them? Thompson's voice dropped. This man, this petty officer you mocked. He crawled through a steam tunnel with temperatures hot enough to melt skin. He manually shut down a reactor that was seconds from critical failure. He saved 5,000 lives. The Admiral turned back to Richard. He also wrote the emergency override protocol that every nuclear carrier in the fleet still uses today. The protocol that just saved this ship. Rodriguez's face had gone pale. Chen's eyes were wide. The Navy gave him the Navy Cross, Thompson continued. The citation is classified because the details of the incident were too sensitive. But every admiral in the nuclear Navy knows the name Richard Marrow. We study what he did. We teach it at Annapolis. He turned back to Evans. And today, 62 years later, when this ship was dying, he did it again. Thompson's voice went quiet. Dangerous. So when I hear that a Marine corporal insulted this man, mocked him, called him a civilian playing hero, his eyes bored into Evans. I have to wonder what kind of man disrespects the very legends he depends on. Evans' face drained of color. His throat worked, but no sound came out. Corporal Evans. Thompson's voice snapped like a whip. Front and center. Evans stepped forward. His legs felt like water. Thompson looked at him. Do you have anything to say to Petty Officer Marrow? Evans opened his mouth, closed it. His hands shook. Sir, I didn't know. You didn't know because you didn't ask. You didn't listen. You saw an old man and assumed you knew everything. Thompson stepped closer. Let me tell you what I see when I look at you, Corporal. I see a 22-year-old who thinks his uniform makes him special, who thinks youth equals wisdom, who thinks respect is something you get, not something you earn. Evans's face burned. You want to know what real strength looks like. Thompson gestured to Richard. It looks like an 85-year-old man crawling through hell because it's the right thing to do. It looks like humility. It looks like service. It looks like every quality you failed to show today. The reactor compartment was silent except for the hum of restored systems. Thompson turned to Richard. Sir, on behalf of every sailor in this fleet, I apologize for how you were treated today. You deserved better. Richard's voice came soft. Admiral, the corporal was scared. We were all scared. Fear makes men say things they don't mean. That's generous, sir. More generous than he deserves. Maybe. Richard looked at Evans. Really looked at him. But I was 22 once. I thought I knew everything too. Until the day the world proved me wrong. Evans felt tears burning. He blinked them back. Richard continued, his voice gentle. Corporal, can I tell you something? Evans nodded, didn't trust his voice. The man I was when I crawled into that reactor on the Enterprise. He was terrified. His hands shook so hard he could barely hold the wrench. He thought he was going to die. And the only thing that got him through was remembering that 5,000 other men were depending on him. Richard's hand touched Evans's shoulder. You're not a bad man. You're a young man who hasn't learned yet that strength isn't about being loud. It's about being quiet when the world goes dark and still doing what needs to be done. Evans's throat closed. Sir, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I know. Richard squeezed his shoulder. Now you know too, and that's what matters. Medical arrived. They examined Richard's burns, his bleeding hands, his exhausted body. They wanted to stretcher him out, but Richard waved them off. I can walk. I'm old, not broken. David supported his grandfather's arm as they left the reactor compartment. The entire crew lined the corridor, and as Richard passed, every sailor, every engineer, every Marine came to attention. A salute, spontaneous, perfect, united, for an old man who'd saved them all. When they reached the medical bay, Rodriguez appeared at the door. "Mr. Marrow, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Why did you come today? You could have lived out your retirement never setting foot on another carrier. Why risk your life for a ship that wasn't even yours?" Richard thought about that. "Because it was my ship. Every carrier is my ship. Every sailor is my responsibility. That's what it means to serve. You never stop. You never retire from caring." Rodriguez nodded slowly. "Sir, I've been an engineer for 20 years. I thought I knew these systems. But today, you showed me I'd forgotten the most important part." "What's that?" "That ships are more than technology. They're people. And people need to remember that someone somewhere cared enough to build a way out when everything failed." Richard smiled. "Now you understand." David stayed with his grandfather while the medics treated his burns. The shoulder wound was second degree. The hands were cut and bruised. His vitals showed exhaustion. But he was alive. "Grandpa," David said quietly, "why didn't you ever tell me about the Enterprise, about what you did?" "Because it wasn't about me. It was about the ship, the men, the mission." Richard winced as the medic applied ointment. "Your grandmother knew. She understood. But I never wanted to be the old man telling war stories. I wanted to be useful." "You were more than useful today. You were a hero." "Heroes are just people who do what needs to be done when nobody else can. Nothing special about it." But David knew better, and so did everyone else on that ship. Later that night, after Richard had been cleared by medical and was resting in temporary quarters, Captain Morrison visited. "Mr. Marrow, I wanted to thank you personally. You saved my ship and my crew." "Just doing what I was trained to do, Captain." Morrison shook his head. "It was more than that. You remembered. You kept knowledge alive that the rest of us had forgotten. And because you did, 1,100 people are going home to their families." "Now," he held out a folder. "The Navy is creating a new fleet-wide doctrine. We're calling it the Marrow Procedure. Every nuclear carrier will maintain a record of mechanical override systems. Every engineer will be trained in manual restart protocols. Your knowledge will be preserved." Richard took the folder. His hands still shook, but his eyes were clear. "That's good. That's important. Technology fails. It always does. But knowledge, real knowledge, that's what saves lives." Morrison saluted. Richard returned it. And for a moment, the captain and the old petty officer were equals. After Morrison left, David sat with his grandfather in the quiet. "Grandpa, what you said to Evans about being scared, was that true?" "Every word. I was terrified on the Enterprise. I'm still terrified when I think about it." "But you did it anyway." "Because someone had to, and I was the only one who knew how." Richard looked at his grandson. "David, you're going to face moments in your life where you're the only one who can do something, where everything depends on you doing it right, and you'll be scared. That's okay. Fear means you understand the stakes. What matters is what you do with that fear. What if I freeze? What if I can't do it? Then you remember that every person who ever did something worth doing was scared. They just didn't let the fear stop them." Richard smiled. "And you remember that, somewhere, your old grandfather crawled through a steam tunnel at 85 because he believed in doing the right thing." David laughed through tears. "You're insane. Maybe. But I'm also alive. And so are you. And so are 1,100 other people." They sat in comfortable silence until Richard's exhaustion pulled him towards sleep. Before he drifted off, Richard whispered, "Sarah would have been proud. Grandma. She always said I couldn't resist being useful, even when I should stay home and rest." Richard's eyes closed. She was right. She was always right. David watched his grandfather sleep. This man who'd carried a brass valve key for 62 years, who'd built the foundation the Navy stood on, who'd refused to let knowledge die. who'd taught a ship full of young sailors that some things never change, that duty matters, that service never ends, that the quietest person in the room might be the one who saves everyone. And somewhere in the reactor compartment, Corporal Jake Evans sat alone, the swagger gone, the arrogance burned away like steam. He thought about the old man he'd mocked, the hero he'd insulted, the legend he'd never even known existed. And for the first time in his 22 years, Jake Evans understood what it meant to be small. But that's not where this story ends. Because what happened next, what happened when Evans finally understood what he'd been part of, that's when things got really interesting. That's when the lesson became something more than words. That's when a Marine who thought he knew everything learned what it means to respect the men who came before. But we'll get to that, because in a few weeks, Evans would see Richard one more time, in a place Evans never expected, and what the old man would teach him there would change his life forever. 3 weeks after Richard saved the ship, Jake Evans couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the old man's face, heard his own voice sneering, felt the weight of Admiral Thompson's words crushing down. You saw an old man and assumed you knew everything. Evans rolled over in his bunk. 0200 hours. The carrier hummed beneath him alive because of a man he'd tried to throw off the ship. His phone buzzed. Text from his mother. Your father wants to talk to you. Says it's important. Call when you can. Evans stared at the message. His father never asked to talk. Not since Evans had enlisted against his wishes. Not since their last fight 3 years ago. He typed back, I'll call tomorrow. But tomorrow came, and Evans didn't call. Couldn't call. Because talking to his father meant admitting what had happened. Meant saying out loud that he'd been wrong. And Jake Evans had never been good at being wrong. Remember that. Because what Evans doesn't know yet is going to destroy him. Commander Chen found him on the flight deck 2 days later, dawn breaking over the Pacific. Evans stood at the rail staring at nothing. Corporal. Evans straightened. Ma'am. At ease. Chen leaned against the rail beside him. You've been quiet since the incident. Yes, ma'am. You want to talk about it? Evans's jaw worked. Nothing to talk about, ma'am. I screwed up. I learned my lesson. Did you... The question hung between them like smoke. Chen turned to face him. Corporal, I've been in the Navy 16 years. I've seen a lot of young sailors learn hard lessons. Some of them learn and grow. Some of them just learn to hide their mistakes better. Ma'am, Which one are you, Evans? He couldn't answer. Didn't know how. Chen's voice softened. That man you insulted, Richard Marrow. He didn't just save this ship. He saved every ship. Because he remembered what the rest of us forgot. That knowledge matters more than pride. That experience isn't weakness. I know that now, ma'am. Do you... Because knowing and understanding are two different things. Chen pushed off the rail. Mr. Marrow is giving a presentation at the Naval Academy next month. Admiral Thompson requested it. They want him to teach the manual override protocols to the next generation of engineers. Evans felt something twist in his chest. That's good, ma'am. Admiral Thompson also requested that you attend. Evans' head snapped up. Ma'am. He thinks you need to hear what Mr. Marrow has to say. I agree. Chen's eyes held his. This isn't punishment, Corporal. It's an opportunity. Take it. She walked away, leaving Evans alone with the dawn and his thoughts. And if you think you know where this is going, you're wrong. Stay with me. The Naval Academy presentation was scheduled for a Friday. Evans flew in Thursday night, checked into temporary quarters, and spent the evening trying not to think about facing Richard Marrow again. Friday morning, he put on his dress uniform, checked it 3 times. His hands shook as he tied his tie. Get it together, he told his reflection. You're a Marine. Act like it. But the face staring back at him looked young, scared, like a kid playing dress-up. The lecture hall was packed. 300 midshipmen, officers, engineers. Evans slipped into a seat in the back row, tried to be invisible. Admiral Thompson walked to the podium. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor to introduce a man who needs no introduction. Though many of you don't know his name, you all depend on his work. Petty Officer Richard Marrow. Applause filled the hall. Richard walked out slowly, leaning on a cane now. His shoulder was still healing, but his eyes were clear. He reached the podium and gripped it with both hands, looked out at the crowd. His gaze swept past Evans without stopping. Did he see me? Does he know I'm here? Thank you, Admiral. Richard's voice was soft but carried. I'm not much of a speaker. I'm an engineer. I fix things. But Admiral Thompson asked me to talk about what happened on the Gerald R. Ford 3 weeks ago, so I'll try. He paused, collected himself. 62 years ago, I was 23 years old. I'd been in the Navy 5 years. I thought I knew everything. I thought being young meant being right. He smiled. I was an idiot. Laughter rippled through the hall. The USS Enterprise CVN-65 was the first nuclear carrier in the world. We were making history. We were also making mistakes. Lots of them. Because nuclear power was new. Carriers were new. We were learning as we went. Richard's hands tightened on the podium. One day in 1963, we had a fire in the reactor compartment. Temperature spiked to 700 degrees in 90 seconds. The reactor was going to breach. We had 3 minutes before 5,000 men died. The hall went silent. My chief engineer, a man named Thomas Chen, he looked at me and said, "Marrow, you're small enough to fit through the steam tunnel. You know where the manual shutoff is. You have to go." Richard's voice cracked. I said, "Chief, that tunnel is 700 degrees. I'll die in there." And you know what he told me? Nobody breathed. He said, "You'll die out here too. At least in there you'll die doing something useful." Evans felt his throat close. So I went. I crawled through that tunnel. The heat was so intense my skin blistered through my clothes. I couldn't see, couldn't breathe, could barely think. But I found that valve, and I turned it, and the reactor shut down. Richard looked up at the crowd. When I crawled back out, Chief Chen pulled me from the tunnel. I was burned, bleeding, half conscious. And he looked at me and said, "Good job, kid. Now you're a sailor." He let that sit. Chief Chen died 2 years later. Heart attack, 53 years old. I went to his funeral. His daughter was there. Sarah Chen, 19 years old. Beautiful, smart. She shook my hand and said, "Thank you for letting my father die knowing he'd taught someone well." Richard's voice went soft. I married that girl 2 years later. Spent 48 years with her before cancer took her. Best years of my life. Evans felt tears on his face. Didn't wipe them away. And here's the twist you didn't see coming. Pay attention. Richard continued. Sarah and I had one child, a daughter, Catherine. Katie grew up hearing stories about her grandfather, Chief Thomas Chen, the man who saved 5,000 sailors by sending a kid into a steam tunnel. The man who believed in passing knowledge forward. He paused. Katie became a nurse, Navy nurse, served on a hospital ship in the Gulf War, met a Marine, fell in love, married him, had a son. Evans's heart stopped. No, it can't be. That Marine's name was Marcus Evans. The hall erupted. Every head turned toward Evans in the back row. Evans couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Richard looked directly at him. And their son, my great-grandson, is Corporal Jake Evans, currently serving on the USS Gerald R. Ford. Evans felt the world tilt. His mother's maiden name, Chen. He'd never connected it, never asked, never knew. Richard smiled, sad, knowing. Jake's father and I had a falling out 20 years ago. We haven't spoken since. So Jake grew up never knowing his great-grandfather, never knowing where he came from, never knowing that his great-great-grandfather was Chief Thomas Chen, the man who started it all. Admiral Thompson stood frozen at the side of the stage. Nobody moved. 3 weeks ago, Richard said, I walked onto the Gerald R. Ford to help with an emergency, and a young Marine corporal insulted me, mocked me, tried to throw me off the ship. Evans wanted to disappear. wanted to die, wanted to be anywhere but here. That corporal was my great-grandson, and he had no idea. The silence was absolute. I didn't tell him then because it wasn't the time. He needed to learn a lesson about respect, about humility, about understanding that the uniform you wear was paid for by people you've never met. Richard's eyes held Evan's. But now he knows, and now we have a choice. We can let the past stay broken, or we can fix it. He stepped away from the podium, walked slowly down the center aisle. Every person in the hall watched him move. The cane tapped against the floor. Tap, tap, tap. Evan stood. His legs barely held him. Richard stopped 3 feet away. "Hello, Jake." "Sir, Evans's voice broke. "I didn't know. I swear I didn't know." "I know. My father never told me. Never said anything about you, about any of it." "I know." Richard's voice was gentle. "Your father and I had our reasons for not speaking, but those reasons don't matter anymore." "Sir, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for what I said." "Jake." Richard held up his hand. "I didn't come here for an apology. I came here to tell you something your father should have told you years ago." Evans couldn't speak. "You come from a line of men who saved lives. Chief Thomas Chen saved 5,000 men by sending me into that tunnel. I saved them by going. Your grandmother Sarah saved hundreds of wounded sailors as a nurse. Your mother did the same in the Gulf War." Richard stepped closer. "And your father, Marcus Evans, he saved 12 Marines in Fallujah. Took shrapnel in his spine doing it. That's why he walks with a cane. That's why he didn't want you to enlist. Because he knows what service costs." Evans felt his world rearranging. Every fight with his father, every argument, every angry word, all of it reframed in an instant. Your father never told you because he was trying to protect you, but you can't protect someone from their own heritage. You can't hide where you come from. Richard held out his hand. In it was the brass valve key, worn smooth by 62 years. This belonged to Chief Chen. He gave it to me when I crawled into that tunnel. Said every sailor should have a tool that reminds them why they serve. He pressed it into Evan's hand. "Now it's yours. Not because you deserve it, but because you need to understand what it means." Evans stared at the brass, the weight of it, the history. "Sir, I can't take this." "Yes, you can, because you're family, because you're part of something bigger than yourself. Because 62 years ago, a chief engineer sent a scared kid into hell and that kid came out changed." Richard's hand gripped Evan's shoulder. "You were that scared kid 3 weeks ago. You went into hell too, and you came out changed. Now the question is, what are you going to do with it?" Evans closed his fist around the key. "I don't know." "Then let me tell you what Chief Chen told me. He said, Marrow, every sailor has a choice. You can serve yourself, or you can serve something bigger. Most men serve themselves and wonder why they feel empty. The rare ones, the real ones, they serve something bigger and discover they were never empty at all." Richard smiled. "You're standing at that choice right now, Jake. What's it going to be?" Before Evans could answer, his phone buzzed. He ignored it. It buzzed again and again. Richard nodded. "Answer it. Some calls can't wait." Evans pulled out his phone. 12 missed calls. All from his mother. His hands shook as he dialed back. "Mom." "Jake." Her voice was breaking. "It's your father. He's in the hospital. Heart attack. They don't know if—" The world dropped away. I'm coming right now." He hung up. Looked at Richard. "My father." "I heard. Go. I'll have Thompson arrange transport." "Sir, Go, Jake. Some things matter more than presentations." Richard squeezed his shoulder. "And Jake, when you see your father, tell him something for me." "What?" "Tell him I'm sorry. Tell him the fight we had 20 years ago was stupid. Tell him I was wrong." Richard's eyes were wet. "Tell him I'd like to fix it before one of us dies." Evans ran. Thompson arranged a helicopter. Evans was in the air in 20 minutes. The flight to San Diego took 3 hours. Every minute felt like a year. He kept opening his fist, looking at the brass key. closing his fist again, kept thinking about his father, the man who'd never explained his limp, never talked about the war, never mentioned the shrapnel in his spine or the 12 Marines he'd saved, the man who'd fought with Evans when he enlisted. Who'd said, "You don't know what you're signing up for. You think it's glory. It's not. It's pain and loss and watching friends die." Evans had called him a coward, had said he was afraid of his son being braver than he was. God, I was so stupid. The helicopter landed at Naval Medical Center San Diego at 1400 hours. Evans ran through the halls, still in dress uniform, asking for Marcus Evans. A nurse directed him to the ICU. "Room 7, your mother's with him." Evans pushed through the door. His mother sat beside the bed holding his father's hand. Tubes and wires connected his father to machines that beeped and hissed. His father's eyes were closed. His face was gray. "Mom." Catherine Evans looked up. Her face was wrecked. "Jake, thank God." He went to her, hugged her, felt her shake against him. "How is he?" "They don't know. The heart attack was massive. They got him stabilized, but..." Her voice broke. "They don't know." Evans looked at his father. The man seemed small in the hospital bed, fragile, nothing like the Marine who'd raised him. "Can he hear us?" "They think so. They said to talk to him." Evans moved to the bedside, took his father's other hand. The skin felt paper thin, cold. "Dad, it's Jake. I'm here." Nothing. Just the beep of monitors. "Dad, I need to tell you something. I met him. I met Richard." His mother's head snapped up. "You what?" "Richard Marrow, your grandfather. He was there, on my ship, 3 weeks ago." Evans's voice shook. "I didn't know who he was. I insulted him, treated him like garbage. And then I found out..." Catherine's hand went to her mouth. "Oh, Jake." "He saved our ship, Mom. Crawled through a steam tunnel at 85 years old and saved 1,100 people, including me." Tears ran down Evans's face. "And I didn't know. Dad never told me. Never said we were related to, because I asked him not to." His father's voice came weak, raspy. "But there." Evans' heart jumped. "Dad?" "Marcus." Evans' eyes opened, barely. "I asked him not to tell you. Didn't want you living in anyone's shadow." "Dad, you're awake." "Not for long." Marcus's breathing was labored. "Listen. Need to say this. Dad, don't talk. Save your strength." "No." Marcus's hand squeezed weakly. "Been saving my strength for 20 years. Time to spend it." Catherine moved closer. "Marcus, please. Katie, I need to do this." He looked at his son. "Jake, I kept Richard away because I was angry. Angry at what service cost him, cost your grandmother, cost me. Dad, let me finish." Marcus coughed, grimaced. "When I got hit in Fallujah, when that shrapnel tore through my spine, I woke up in the hospital and Richard was there. He'd flown out, sat with me. And you know what he said?" Evans shook his head. "He said, 'You did good, son. You saved those Marines. Your great-grandfather would be proud.'" And I looked at him, at this man who'd crawled through hell and lost his wife and spent his whole life serving, and I thought, this is what service does. It breaks you, uses you up, takes everything. Marcus's eyes closed. "So I told him I didn't want that for you. Didn't want you growing up thinking you had to be a hero, had to live up to some legacy. I told him to stay away, and he did. Dad, why didn't you tell me any of this? Because you were supposed to be different. You were supposed to have a normal life. Be safe." Marcus's voice cracked. "But then you enlisted anyway, and I knew I'd lost you to the same thing that took all of us." Evans felt something break inside him. "Dad, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I called you a coward. I'm sorry I didn't understand." "You weren't supposed to understand. That was the point." Marcus opened his eyes. "But now you do. Now you've met Richard. Now you know." "He gave me this." Evans pulled out the brass key. "Said it belonged to Chief Chen, that it's mine now." Marcus stared at the key. His hand trembled as he reached for it. "I saw that key once, when I was a kid. Richard showed it to me and told me the story. about Chief Chen sending him into the tunnel, about how carrying that key reminded him every day what service meant. He touched it with one finger. I never wanted you to carry that weight. Dad, Richard said to tell you something. What? He said he's sorry, said the fight you had was stupid, that he was wrong. Evans's voice broke. He said he wants to fix it before one of you dies. Marcus's face crumpled. I was the one who was wrong. Then tell him. Let me call him. Let me... Jake. Marcus's grip tightened. Bring him here, please. I need to see him. Evans pulled out his phone. Called Admiral Thompson. Sir, it's Evans. I need to reach Richard Marrow. It's an emergency. It's my father. Thompson didn't hesitate. I'll have him on a flight within the hour. 2 hours later, Richard Marrow walked into the ICU. He moved slowly, leaning on his cane, his burned shoulder still healing. But when he saw Marcus in that hospital bed, he moved faster. Marcus. Richard. 20 years of silence, 20 years of anger and hurt and misunderstanding, and it all dissolved in a single moment. Richard reached the bedside, gripped Marcus's hand. I'm sorry, son. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry too. Marcus's voice was barely a whisper. I was angry, scared. I didn't want Jake to... I know. I understand. I felt the same way when your mother enlisted. Richard's voice shook. But we can't protect them from who they are. Marcus looked at his son, then back at Richard. He met you on his ship. He did. And he didn't know. Not until today. Marcus closed his eyes. I failed him. Failed all of you. No. Richard's grip tightened. You saved him. You gave him a choice. That's more than most fathers do. But he chose service anyway. Because it's in his blood. Because Chief Chen's legacy doesn't end. It just keeps moving forward. Richard smiled through tears. And now your son carries it. Just like you did. Just like I did. Catherine stood beside her son, tears streaming. Evans held the brass key so tight his knuckles were white. Marcus looked at Jake. Come here, son. Evans moved closer. Take that key, Marcus said. Hold it up so I can see it. Evans did. That key represents something I tried to run from my whole life. The idea that service matters more than safety. That some men are called to do hard things. That legacy isn't a burden, it's a gift. Marcus's breathing was getting harder. The machines beeped faster. Jake, I don't know if I'm going to make it through this. The doctors won't say it, but I can feel it. I'm tired. So tired. Dad, don't... Listen to me. Marcus forced the words out. If I don't make it, I want you to know something. I'm proud of you. I've always been proud of you. I was just too scared to admit it. Evans couldn't see through the tears. Dad, you're going to be fine. You have to be fine. And I want you to remember what Richard taught me, what Chief Chen taught him. That service isn't about glory. It's about showing up when things break and fixing them because nobody else can. Marcus looked at Richard. Take care of him. Teach him. Give him what I couldn't. Marcus, you gave him everything that matters. You gave him character, integrity, the strength to face his mistakes. Richard's voice was firm. Now you fight. You hear me. You fight to stay with him. I'm trying, Dad. God, I'm trying. The word hung in the air. Dad. Marcus had never called Richard that. Not once in 40 years. Richard's face crumpled. Then keep trying, son, because you don't get to quit. That's not what we do. We don't quit when things get hard. Marcus smiled, weak, exhausted. Just like Chief Chen. Just like Chief Chen. The night stretched long. Doctors came and went. Nurses checked vitals. Machines hummed and beeped. Evan sat beside his father holding his hand while Richard sat on the other side. Catherine brought coffee. Nobody drank it, just held the cups for warmth. At 0300 hours, Marcus's breathing changed. The machines started alarming. Nurses rushed in. What's happening? Evans stood. What's wrong? His heart's failing. The nurse hit a button. Code blue ICU 7. Everything became chaos. Doctors flooded in. Someone pushed Evans back. Someone else pulled Catherine away. Richard stood frozen watching as they worked on Marcus. Charging to 200, clear. Marcus's body arched. The machine screamed, then settled, then screamed again. No pulse. Charging to 300, clear. Another arch, another scream, another flat line. Come on, Marcus. Richard's voice was low, desperate. Don't you quit! Don't you dare quit! Charging to 360. This is the last one. Clear! Marcus's body arched one more time, and then the machine steadied. A beep. Slow. Weak. But there. We've got a pulse. Evans collapsed against the wall. Catherine sobbed. Richard closed his eyes and whispered something that might have been a prayer or might have been thanks. The doctor came out 10 minutes later. He's stable, for now, but his heart is badly damaged. The next 48 hours are critical. But he's alive, Evans said. For now. They moved Marcus to a private room. Evans stayed, refused to leave. Richard stayed too. 2 men 3 generations apart watching over a man they both loved. Dawn came through the window. Evans hadn't slept. Neither had Richard. Richard, Evans said quietly, can I ask you something? Of course. When you crawled into that tunnel on the Enterprise when you thought you were going to die, what kept you going? Richard thought about that. Chief Chen's face, the way he looked at me when he said I had to go. He wasn't sending me to die. He was trusting me to save everyone, and I couldn't let him down. Is that what you felt 3 weeks ago on my ship? No. Richard turned to look at him. 3 weeks ago, I felt like an old man who needed to prove he still mattered, that his knowledge still had value, that he wasn't just someone to be dismissed. Evans flinched. I'm sorry. I'm not telling you to make you feel guilty. I'm telling you because it's true. And because you need to understand something. Richard leaned forward. Service isn't about being perfect. It's about showing up even when you're scared, even when you're old, even when nobody thinks you can do it. And sometimes the people who need to prove themselves most are the ones who've been doing it longest. My father tried to protect me from that. Because he loves you. Because he knows what it costs. Richard's voice was gentle. But you can't be protected from who you are, Jake. And you are your great-great-grandfather's legacy. You are your father's son. You are part of something that started 62 years ago in a steam tunnel and hasn't stopped since. Evans opened his fist, looked at the brass key. What if I can't live up to it? Then you'll be like the rest of us, scared, imperfect, doing your best. Richard smiled. The key isn't magic, Jake. It's just a reminder that someone believed in you enough to trust you with it. Chief Chen believed in you. And I believe in you. And your father believes in you. And someday you'll pass that key to someone else and believe in them. Richard stood slowly, wincing. That's how legacy works. It's not about being perfect. It's about being present. Marcus stirred. His eyes opened. Are you two done being sappy? Evans jumped up. Dad? I'm awake, barely, but awake. Marcus looked at Richard. Did you tell him the rest? The rest? About why Chief Chen gave you that key? Richard hesitated. Marcus, that's not... Tell him. Marcus's voice was firm. He needs to know the whole story. Richard sat back down. Chief Chen didn't give me that key because I was special. He gave it to me because I was the one who came back. Evans frowned. What do you mean? There were 2 of us in that tunnel. Me and another sailor. Tommy Peterson, 22 years old, engaged to be married. Richard's voice went hollow. The tunnel split. Chief Chen told us each to take a valve. I went left. Tommy went right. Nobody spoke. I got to my valve. Turned it. Started crawling back. When I reached the junction, I waited for Tommy. He never came. Richard's hands shook. The steam got him. By the time we found his body, there was nothing left to identify except his dog tags. Evans felt his chest tighten. Chief Chen gave me that key 3 days later, at Tommy's funeral. He said, "Marrow, you lived. Tommy didn't. That's not fair. That's not right. But that's what happened. And now you have a choice. You can feel guilty for surviving, or you can make sure Tommy's death meant something. You can carry this key and remember that every time you use it, you're honoring the man who died so you could live." Richard looked at Evans. "That's what this key means. It's not about glory. It's about debt. About remembering that you're standing on the shoulders of people who didn't make it back, and you owe them your best." Evans's throat closed. "I don't know if I can—" "You already did," Marcus's voice cut through. "3 weeks ago, when you watched Richard crawl into that tunnel, when you realized what service really means, you already started paying that debt. Now you just have to keep paying it." "How?" "By showing up, by doing the work, by being the man Tommy Peterson would be proud of, the man Chief Chen would be proud of, the man Richard is proud of." Marcus held out his hand. "The man I'm proud of." Evans took his father's hand, felt the weakness in it, the tremor, the damage from a lifetime of service. And he understood. Service breaks you, uses you up, takes everything. But it also makes you part of something eternal, something that doesn't end when you die, something that keeps moving forward through every person you touch, every life you save, every moment you choose to show up when things break. "I'll try," Evans said. "I promise I'll try." That's all any of us can do. Marcus closed his eyes, exhausted, but at peace. "Now let me sleep. If I'm going to survive this, I need rest." Catherine kissed her husband's forehead. "I'm not leaving you." "I know. You never do." Richard stood. "I should go. Let you rest." "Richard." Marcus's eyes opened one more time. "Thank you for coming, for forgiving me, for being here. Always, son, always." Outside the hospital, Evans walked Richard to his car. The sun was up. The day was starting. Life was moving forward. "Richard, can I ask one more thing?" "Of course." "Why did you really come onto that ship 3 weeks ago? You could have stayed home. Could have let someone else fix it. Why risk your life?" Richard unlocked his car, paused. "Because I made a promise to Chief Chen 59 years ago. I promised him that if there was ever another crisis, if there was ever another moment when knowledge could save lives, I wouldn't stay home. I'd show up. Even at 85, especially at 85, because by then I'd learned what really matters." Richard smiled. "And I wanted to see if the key still worked. Did it? You tell me. You were there." Evans thought about the valve turning, the cooling loop restarting, the ship coming back to life. "Yeah, it worked." "Then Chief Chen's legacy lives on." Richard got in his car. "Take care of that key, Jake. Pass it forward when the time comes. And remember, service isn't about being fearless. It's about being scared and showing up anyway." He drove away, leaving Evans standing in the parking lot holding a piece of brass that connected him to a man he'd never met, a legacy he'd never known, and a future he was only beginning to understand. And somewhere in the hospital behind him, his father slept, healing, fighting, refusing to quit, just like Chief Chen, just like Richard, just like every sailor who ever turned a valve in the dark and prayed it would be enough. Evans stood in the parking lot long after Richard's car disappeared. The brass key felt heavy in his pocket, heavier than it should, like it was made of something denser than metal. His phone rang. "Commander Chen." "Corporal Evans, I heard about your father. How is he?" "Stable, ma'am. He's fighting." "Good. Take the time you need. We'll cover your duties." "Thank you, ma'am." Evans hesitated. "Commander, can I ask you something?" "Go ahead. Did you know about Richard being my great-grandfather?" Silence on the other end. "Then I suspected. Your mother's maiden name is Chen. Richard's wife was Sarah Chen. It wasn't hard to connect. Why didn't you say anything?" Because it wasn't my place. Some things families have to work out themselves. Chen's voice softened. But for what it's worth, I'm glad you know now. You come from good people, Evans. Live up to it. She hung up before he could respond. Evans went back inside. His mother was asleep in a chair beside his father's bed. His father was awake, staring at nothing. "Dad!" Marcus turned his head. "Thought you'd gone home." "I'm not going anywhere." Evans pulled up a chair. "We need to talk." "About what?" "About everything you never told me. About Chief Chen. About Richard. About Fallujah." Evans leaned forward. "I'm done with the silence, Dad. I need to understand." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Okay, where do you want me to start?" "Start with why you hated that I enlisted. And you need to hear this. Because what Marcus tells his son changes everything." Marcus took a breath, winced, his chest hurt. "I didn't hate that you enlisted. I hated that I couldn't protect you from what comes after." "What comes after?" "The weight, the memories, the nights you can't sleep because you keep seeing faces of people you couldn't save." Marcus's voice went hollow. "I killed 3 men in Fallujah, Jake. 3 enemy combatants who were trying to kill my squad. I did it without hesitating. Put them down like it was nothing." Evans didn't speak. "And then I took shrapnel saving those 12 Marines. Woke up in a hospital and all I could think about was those 3 men I'd killed. Their faces. The way they'd looked surprised when the bullets hit. Like they couldn't believe they were dying." Marcus closed his eyes. "I told Richard about it. About the guilt. About feeling like a murderer even though everyone said I was a hero. You know what he said?" "What?" "He said, 'Welcome to the club. Every man who's ever saved lives has taken them too. That's the price. That's what service costs. And you carry it until the day you die.'" Evans felt something twist inside. "That's why you didn't want me to enlist. I didn't want you carrying bodies, son. I didn't want you waking up at 3 a.m. seeing faces. I didn't want you knowing what it feels like to kill someone and save someone in the same breath, and not knowing which one makes you a better man. But I enlisted anyway. Because it's in your blood. Because you're Chief Chen's great-great-grandson. Because you can't fight genetics." Marcus opened his eyes. "And because you're stronger than I gave you credit for." "I'm not strong, Dad. 3 weeks ago, I mocked an old man because I was scared. Because the ship was dying and I didn't know how to fix it, and it was easier to mock someone than admit I was terrified. That's human. That's normal. It's not what Chief Chen would have done." "You didn't know Chief Chen." Marcus's voice firmed up. "You think he was perfect. You think he never made mistakes. He was human too. He got scared. He doubted himself. The difference is, he kept showing up anyway." Evans pulled out the brass key. "Richard said this key is about debt, about remembering Tommy Peterson, about honoring the people who didn't make it back." "It is." "Who do you carry, Dad, who didn't make it back for you?" Marcus's face crumpled. "Danny Walsh, 23 years old, from Iowa. He was right next to me when the IED went off. The blast missed me. Got him instead. He bled out in my arms before the medic could reach us." Evans's throat closed. "I carry him every day. Every step I take with this cane I think about Danny. About how it should have been me. About how the blast was 6 inches from taking me instead of him." Marcus's voice broke. "That's what the key means, Jake. It means you lived when someone else didn't, and you owe them your best for the rest of your life. How do you do it? How do you keep going? You just do. Because the alternative is giving up. And giving up means their death didn't mean anything." Marcus gripped his son's hand. "You show up. You do the work. You try to be the man Danny would be proud of. That's all any of us can do. Stay with me. Because what happens next is going to break your heart." Catherine woke up, looked at her husband and son. "What are you two talking about?" "The weight," Marcus said. Catherine nodded slowly. Your father carried it his whole life. So did Richard. So does every person who serves. She stood, moved to the window. I carried it too. Mom, Gulf War, hospital ship. Hospital. We treated everyone. Our soldiers, their soldiers, civilians caught in the crossfire. Her voice went distant. I had a patient once, Iraqi soldier, 17 years old, shrapnel in his abdomen. We worked on him for 6 hours. Did everything we could. He died anyway. She turned to face them. Before he died, he grabbed my hand, looked at me, said something in Arabic. The translator told me later he'd said, "Thank you for trying. Tell my mother I was brave." Tears ran down her face. I never found his mother, never got to tell her, so I carry him. 17-year-old boy who died on my table because I wasn't good enough to save him. Evans stood, went to his mother, held her. Mom, it wasn't your fault. I know, but I still carry him. That's what service means. You carry everyone you couldn't save, and you try to save the next one better. Is that what Grandma Sarah did? Is that why she became a nurse? Catherine pulled back, wiped her eyes. Your grandmother became a nurse because her father, Chief Chen, died when she was 19. Heart attack. Sudden. No warning. She found him collapsed in the garage. Evans felt the world shift. Richard's wife found her own father dead. She did. And it broke her. She blamed herself for not knowing CPR, for not being able to save him. So she became a nurse. Learned everything she could about saving lives. Met Richard 2 years later at the funeral for someone else. They bonded over carrying ghosts. That's why Richard said she understood duty. She lived it. She breathed it. When she died 5 years ago, Richard was holding her hand. Her last words were, "Did I do enough? Did I save enough people to make up for losing Dad?" Evans's chest hurt. What did Richard say? He said, "You saved me. That's enough." Catherine's voice broke again. And then she was gone, and Richard had to figure out how to carry one more ghost. Marcus spoke from the bed. "That's why he came onto your ship, Jake. That's why he couldn't stay home, because staying home meant giving up, meant letting the ghosts win. But he's 85 years old, and he'll die doing something useful, or he'll die knowing he stayed home when he was needed. For men like Richard, that's not a choice. It's who they are. And here's the twist, the one you didn't see coming. Pay close attention." Evans's phone buzzed. Text from Commander Chen. "Evans, there's been an incident. USS Roosevelt reported reactor issues, similar to what we had. They're requesting Richard Marrow's assistance. Admiral Thompson is trying to reach him, but he's not answering. Do you know where he is?" Evans's blood went cold. "Mom, where's Richard staying?" "The Navy Lodge near the base." "Why?" Evans was already moving, running for the door. "I need to find him. Now." He drove 90 miles an hour. Called Richard's cell. No answer. Called the Navy Lodge. "Richard Marrow, please." "I'm sorry, sir. Mr. Marrow checked out this morning." "What? Where did he go?" "He didn't say, sir." Evans hung up. Called Admiral Thompson. "Sir, it's Evans. I can't find Richard. His phone's off. He checked out of his hotel." "Damn it." Thompson's voice was tight. "The Roosevelt needs him. They've got the same Cascade failure. They're dead in the water off the coast of Japan. If we don't get someone who knows the mechanical overrides out there in the next 12 hours, we're looking at a potential disaster." "Sir, I'll find him." "How?" Evans thought fast. "He's my great-grandfather. I know where he'd go." He hung up. Drove to the only place that made sense. The cemetery where Sarah Chen was buried. Evans found Richard sitting on a bench near his wife's grave. The old man looked small, tired, like the weight of 85 years had finally caught up. "Richard." The old man didn't turn. "How did you know I'd be here?" "Because you're carrying ghosts, and sometimes you need to talk to them." Evans sat down beside him. "The Roosevelt is in trouble. Same problem we had. They need you." "I know." Thompson called. I didn't answer. "Why not?" Richard was quiet for a long moment. Then, "Because I'm tired, Jake. So tired. I saved your ship. I thought that would be enough. I thought I'd paid my debt. But there's always another ship, always another crisis. When does it end? It doesn't. I know, Richard's voice cracked. That's what scares me. I'm 85 years old. I've got a burned shoulder that won't heal. My hands shake. My knees barely work. And they want me to crawl into another tunnel, risk my life again. And I don't know if I have anything left to give. Evans looked at the grave. Sarah Chen Marrow, beloved wife, mother, nurse, 1943-2020. What would she tell you? Richard laughed bitterly. She'd tell me I'm being stubborn, that I've never known when to quit, that I'll probably die in a reactor compartment somewhere, and she'll have to explain to God why her husband was an idiot. Would she tell you not to go? Richard turned to look at him. What? Would she tell you to stay home to let someone else handle it? Richard's eyes filled with tears. No. She'd tell me to go. She'd tell me that's who I am, that I can't change it, that the day I stop showing up is the day I stop being the man she married. Then you know what you have to do. It's not that simple. Yes, it is. Evans pulled out the brass key. You gave me this. You told me it's about debt, about honoring the people who didn't make it back. Tommy Peterson, Danny Walsh, that 17-year-old Iraqi soldier, all the ghosts we carry. He held it out. Take it, use it, go save that ship, because there are 1,100 sailors on the Roosevelt who deserve to go home to their families, and you're the only one who can make sure they do. Richard stared at the key. I'm so tired. I know, but tired men still show up. That's what you taught me. What if I can't do it? What if my body gives out? Then you'll die doing something that matters. And Sarah will understand, because she lived that life too. Evans pressed the key into Richard's hand. Now stop talking to ghosts and go save some lives. Richard closed his fist around the key. You're bossy. You know that. I learned from the best. Richard stood slowly, winced. His shoulder protested. His knees cracked. But he stood. Okay, let's go save a ship. Not we, you. I can't go, my father. Your father would want you to go. You know he would. Evans hesitated, then nodded. Let me tell my mother. They drove back to the hospital. Evans explained the situation. Catherine listened, looked at her husband. Marcus. Marcus's voice was weak but firm. Go, both of you. I'll be here when you get back. Dad, I can't leave you. Yes, you can, because this is what we do. This is who we are. Marcus held out his hand. Now go make Chief Chen proud. Evans took his father's hand, squeezed it. I love you, Dad. I love you too, son. Now get out of here before I change my mind. Admiral Thompson arranged transport. A military jet to Japan. 8 hours in the air. Evans and Richard sat side by side, not talking much, both lost in their own thoughts. Halfway through the flight, Richard spoke. Jake, I need to tell you something, in case this goes wrong. It won't go wrong. In case it does. Richard's voice was firm. The key isn't just a tool, it's a symbol of continuity, of knowledge passing from one generation to the next. When I die, and I will die someday soon, I need you to promise me something. What? Pass it forward. Find someone young, someone who thinks they know everything, someone who needs to learn that service matters more than pride, and give them the key. Tell them the story. Make sure the legacy doesn't die with me. Evans's throat closed. Richard, promise me. I promise. Richard nodded, closed his eyes. Good. That's good. He slept the rest of the flight. Evans watched him. This old man who'd saved thousands of lives, who'd carried ghosts for 62 years, who was flying into danger at 85 because he didn't know how to quit. And Evans understood, finally, completely, what service meant. It meant showing up even when you were tired, even when you were scared, even when your body was failing and your mind was screaming to stop. You showed up because people needed you, because you had knowledge they didn't, because quitting meant people died. It was that simple and that hard. The USS Roosevelt was dead in the water when they arrived. Same cascade failure. Same locked out systems. Same panic in the reactor compartment. The chief engineer, a woman named Rodriguez, no relation to the Fords Rodriguez, looked at Richard like he was a ghost. "You're really him, Richard Marrow, Richard, the legend. I'm really just an old man who knows some tricks." Richard looked at the reactor displays. "How long has it been offline?" 6 hours. Batteries at 40%. "Then we'd better hurry." He turned to Evans. "You ready to learn how this works?" Evans blinked. "Me? You think I'm crawling through another tunnel at 85 with a burned shoulder? You're young, you're fit, you're going in. But I don't know how." "I'll teach you. That's how knowledge works. Someone teaches you, then you teach someone else. Now pay attention because we don't have time for mistakes." And this is where it gets intense. Don't look away. Richard spread out the schematics, showed Evans the access panel, the tunnel, the valves, the sequence. First valve counterclockwise, 3 full turns. Wait 30 seconds for pressure to equalize. Counterclockwise, 3 turns, 30 seconds. Second valve is tricky. It's behind a sensor housing. You'll need to route left. Through the narrow junction, there's a secondary valve marked with a 1962 stamp. Marked with 1962. Got it. Third valve is the master control. You turn it clockwise, not counterclockwise. Clockwise. This is important. If you turn it the wrong way, you'll cause a pressure surge that could breach the reactor. Evans felt his mouth go dry. Clockwise. And Jake, Richard gripped his shoulder. If you see steam, don't run. Steam means you're close. It means the system is trying to restart. You push through. You seal any leaks with thermal tape. You keep going. Understand? I understand. Good. Now take this. Richard pressed the brass key into Evans' hand. You're going to need it. Evans looked at the key, the weight of it, the history. Chief Chen, Tommy Peterson, Richard, Sarah, Marcus, Danny Walsh. All of it compressed into 6 ounces of brass. I'm scared, he admitted. Good. Fear means you're smart. Now let's see if you're brave. Evans climbed into the tunnel. The heat hit him immediately. Not as hot as what Richard had faced on the Ford, but hot enough. His breath came short. His heart hammered. Talk to me, Jake. Richard's voice came through the radio. What do you see? First junction, I can see the valve wheel. Good. Now use the key. Fit it into the slot. Pull down with your body weight. Evans fitted the brass key. Pulled. The valve didn't move. It's stuck. It's not stuck. It's old. Pull harder. Use your legs. Evans braced his feet. Pulled with everything he had. The valve groaned, moved, started turning. It's working. 3 full turns. Count them. 1, 2, 3. Now wait. 30 seconds. Time it. Evans counted in his head. His shoulder pressed against the hot metal. Sweat soaked his uniform, but he waited. 30 seconds. Good. Now move to the second valve. Remember route left through the narrow junction. Evans crawled forward. The junction was tight. He had to turn sideways. His shoulders scraped the walls. For a moment, he thought he was stuck. Richard, I don't fit. Yes, you do. Exhale. Make yourself smaller. Push through. Evans exhaled. Pushed. Felt the metal scrape his ribs. Then he was through. I'm through. Find the secondary valve. 1962 stamp. Evans searched. Found it behind a bundle of cables. The brass was tarnished, but the stamp was clear. 1962. Found it. Use the key. Evans fitted the key. This valve turned easier, like it had been waiting. Second valve open. Excellent. Now the hard part, the master control, clockwise. Don't forget clockwise. Evans crawled deeper. The temperature climbed, 120, 125. His hands were slick with sweat. His vision blurred, and then he found the master control valve, but something was wrong. Richard, there's a problem. What kind of problem? The valve is damaged. Looks like someone tried to force it. The wheel is bent. I don't know if the key will fit. Outside the tunnel, Richard's face went white. Jake, listen carefully. If that valve is damaged, you need to come back. We'll find another way. There is no other way. You said so yourself. Jake, how do I fix it? Richard closed his eyes. Thought. Can you straighten the wheel even a little? Maybe, if I had leverage. Use the key. Fit it into the slot. Use it like a pry bar. Gently. If you break the valve, we're done. Evans positioned the key, applied pressure. The wheel groaned, shifted slightly. It's moving. More. Just a little more. Evans pushed harder. The key slipped. He caught it before it fell. His heart was going to explode. Got it. Wheel is straight enough. Now turn it, clockwise, slow and steady. Evans fitted the key properly. Began to turn. The valve resisted, fought him, like it didn't want to move. Come on, Evans whispered. Work with me. He pulled harder. His muscles screamed. His burned hands protested, but the valve began to turn. And then steam exploded from a crack in the pipe. Evans jerked back. The vapor scalded his neck. He bit back a scream. Steam leak, Rodriguez shouted from outside. Evans, get out. But Richard's voice cut through. Jake, remember what I told you. Steam means you're close. Don't run. Seal the leak. With what? Thermal tape in your pocket. Evans fumbled for the tape. His hands shook so badly he almost dropped it. He wrapped the crack. Once. Twice. The steam diminished. 3 times. 4 times. The steam stopped. Leak sealed. Good man. Now finish turning the valve. Evans gripped the key, turned with everything he had. The valve moved, kept moving. And then, click. The ship shuddered. Deep in the core, coolant began to flow. The reactor woke up. The Roosevelt's heart began to beat. Flow restored, Rodriguez shouted. Reactor temperature dropping. We've got it. We've got it. Evans lay in the tunnel gasping. His body was wrecked. His hands were burned. His neck was scalded. But he'd done it. Jake, Richard's voice came gentle. You did good. Chief Chen would be proud. Now come back. Let me see you. Evans crawled back through the tunnel. When he emerged, the entire crew was waiting, watching, silent. Richard helped him out, looked at his burns, his exhausted face, then pulled him into a hug. You did it, son. You saved them. Evans couldn't speak, could barely stand, but he'd done it. Rodriguez stepped forward. Mr. Marrow, Corporal Evans, on behalf of the crew of the USS Roosevelt, thank you. You saved our ship. Richard nodded. Thank the people who came before us, Chief Chen, Tommy Peterson, all the ghosts who taught us what to do. We will, sir. Later in medical, while they treated Evans's burns, Richard sat beside him. How do you feel? Like I got hit by a truck. That's about right, Richard smiled. You know what this means, don't you? What? You're part of the legacy now. You've crawled through the tunnel. You've turned the valve. You've saved lives. You can't go back from that. Evans looked at his burned hands. I don't want to go back. Good. Because the key is yours now. For real. I'm too old for this. My body can't take another round, so it's yours. Pass it forward when the time comes. Richard, I can't. Yes, you can, because you just did. Richard squeezed his shoulder. Now rest. You've earned it. Evans slept. For the first time in weeks, he slept without nightmares, without seeing his father's gray face, without hearing his own voice mocking an old man. He slept the sleep of someone who'd finally understood what it meant to serve something bigger than himself. When he woke up, Richard was gone. There was a note on the table beside his bed. Jake, had to fly back. Your father needs you more than I do. Take care of him. Take care of the key. Take care of the legacy. You're the keeper now. Don't screw it up. Richard. Evans held the note. Then he checked his phone. 12 missed calls from his mother. His heart stopped. He called back. "Mom. Jake." Her voice was shaking. "Where are you?" "Japan. On the Roosevelt. What's wrong?" "Is it Dad?" "He's awake. He's okay. He's asking for you." Evans felt his knees go weak. "He's okay. The doctors say he's going to make it. His heart is healing. He's going to make it, Jake." Evans closed his eyes. "I'm coming home. I'm coming right now." "Jake, he wants to talk to you. He has something to tell you." "What?" "He said you'd understand. He said to tell you." Her voice broke. "He said Danny Walsh would be proud." Evans felt tears streaming down his face. His father knew. Somehow his father knew what had happened on the Roosevelt. Knew his son had crawled through the tunnel. Knew the legacy had passed forward. "Tell him I'm proud too, Mom. Tell him I finally understand." "He knows, sweetheart. He knows." Evans flew home that night. Landed in San Diego at dawn. Drove straight to the hospital. His father was sitting up in bed, color back in his face, looking more alive than he had in days. "Dad." "Jake." Marcus held out his arms. Evans went to him, hugged him carefully, mindful of the IV lines and monitors. "I heard what you did," Marcus said. "Thompson called, told me everything. Said you saved the Roosevelt. Said you crawled into hell and came out a hero. I just did what Richard taught me. No, you did what Chief Chen taught all of us. You showed up. You did the work. You honored the legacy." Marcus's voice was firm. "I'm proud of you, son. Prouder than I've ever been." Evans pulled back. "Dad, I need to tell you something." "What?" "I'm sorry for calling you a coward, for not understanding what service cost you, for thinking I knew better." Evans's voice broke. "I was wrong about everything." Marcus shook his head. "You weren't wrong. You were young. And now you're not. That's how it works. We all start out thinking we know everything. Then life teaches us we don't. The question is whether we learn the lesson." "I learned it." "I know. That's why I'm proud." They sat together in comfortable silence, father and son, Marine and Marine, both carrying ghosts, both understanding what it meant. Catherine came in with coffee. "How are my boys?" "We're good," Marcus said. "We're really good." And for the first time in 3 weeks, Evans believed it. They were good. The legacy was secure. The key had been passed. The ghosts were honored. And somewhere, Chief Thomas Chen was smiling. Because his great-great-grandson had finally learned what it meant to turn a valve in the dark and trust that it would be enough. 2 months passed. Marcus came home from the hospital, walking with a cane but walking. Catherine fussed over him like he was made of glass. He pretended to be annoyed, but Evans could see the gratitude in his eyes. Evans returned to the Ford. His burns healed. The scars remained. Every morning he looked at them and remembered the tunnel, the steam, the valve that almost didn't turn. He kept the brass key in his pocket. Always. The weight of it reminded him who he was now, what he carried, who he owed. Commander Chen called him into her office 3 days after he returned. "Corporal Evans, sit down." Evans sat. His stomach twisted. Was this about leaving? About the Roosevelt? About something he'd screwed up? "Relax, Corporal. You're not in trouble." Chen leaned back in her chair. "I wanted to talk to you about what happened. On the Roosevelt, Admiral Thompson sent his report. Said you performed exceptionally under pressure. I just did what Richard taught me, ma'am." "That's not what Rodriguez said. She said you problem-solved a damaged valve under extreme conditions. Said you showed initiative and courage." Chen's eyes held his. "She recommended you for a commendation." Evans blinked. "Ma'am, I don't deserve—" "Whether you deserve it isn't my call. But I wanted you to know something." Chen leaned forward. 3 months ago, you were an arrogant kid who thought his uniform made him special. Today, you're a Marine who understands what service means. That transformation doesn't happen often. When it does, it's worth recognizing. Thank you, ma'am. Don't thank me. Thank Richard Marrow. Thank your father. Thank everyone who taught you the hard way. She paused. And Evans? Don't forget it. Don't let time make you arrogant again. Stay humble. Stay hungry. Keep learning. Yes, ma'am. Chen dismissed him. Evans walked out feeling like something had shifted, not just in how others saw him, in how he saw himself. He wasn't the same Marine who'd mocked an old man. He'd died in that tunnel, and someone else had crawled back out. Someone who understood that knowledge mattered more than youth. That respect was earned, not demanded. That legacy was a responsibility, not a trophy. And you need to understand something. This change, it was about to be tested in a way Evans never expected. 3 weeks later, a new Marine reported to the Ford, fresh out of boot camp, 20 years old, cocky, loud, everything Evans used to be. His name was Tyler Brooks. He swaggered into the berthing area like he owned it. This is it. This is the great USS Gerald R. Ford. Brooks tossed his sea bag on a bunk. Looks like every other ship I've seen. The other Marines ignored him. They'd learned. New guys always came in hot. The ship broke them down soon enough. But Evans watched Brooks and saw himself 3 months ago. The arrogance, the swagger, the absolute certainty that he knew everything. It made Evans' stomach turn. "You're Brooks?" Evans asked. "That's right. And you are Corporal Evans. I run this berthing area. You follow my rules, we'll get along fine." Brooks looked him up and down. "You don't look that tough." The other Marines went quiet, watching, waiting. Evans could have crushed him, could have pulled rank, could have made Brooks's life hell for the disrespect. 3 months ago he would have. Instead he said, "You're right, I'm not that tough, but the ship is, and the ocean is, and the job is. So if you want to survive here, you'll learn to respect all three." Brooks snorted. "Whatever you say, Corporal." He walked away. The other Marines looked at Evans, surprised he hadn't exploded. "You're getting soft," one of them said. "Maybe, or maybe I learned something." Evans touched the brass key in his pocket. "Give him time. The ship will teach him what I can't." And the ship did try to teach him, but Brooks was a slow learner. He showed up late to musters, talked back to officers, did his work half-heartedly. Within 2 weeks, every Marine on the Ford wanted to throw him overboard. Evans tried talking to him. "Brooks, you need to get your act together. Or, what, you'll write me up. Go ahead, I don't care. It's not about write-ups, it's about respect. For the ship, for the crew, for yourself." Respect. Brooks laughed. "From who? A bunch of lifers who couldn't make it in the real world. No thanks." Evans felt anger rise, pushed it down. "You think this isn't the real world? I think this is a job. I do my time, I get out, I move on with my life. I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid like you." "The Kool-Aid? Yeah, the whole service and honor thing. It's propaganda. We're just tools for politicians who send us to die for oil." Evans wanted to grab Brooks by his collar, wanted to tell him about Chief Chen, about Richard, about crawling through steam at 125 degrees, about the weight of carrying ghosts. But he didn't, because Brooks wasn't ready to hear it. You can't teach someone who thinks they already know everything. So Evans just said, "Okay, believe what you want, but when the ship needs you, you'd better show up, because your cynicism won't keep the lights on when things break." Brooks rolled his eyes. "Whatever. Stay with me, because what happens next changes Brooks forever." 2 weeks later, the Ford was conducting night operations, flight ops, jets launching and recovering, controlled chaos. Beautiful and terrifying. Evans was on watch in the reactor space, routine monitoring, making sure everything ran smooth. Brooks was assigned to him, learning the systems, complaining the whole time. "This is so boring. Why do we have to watch gauges? Isn't this automated?" "It's automated until it's not. Then someone needs to know what to do." Evans checked a pressure reading, logged it. "Pay attention. You might learn something." "I'm not planning to make a career of staring at dials." Neither was I. But here we are. Brooks leaned against a bulkhead, pulled out his phone, started scrolling. "Put that away," Evans said. "No phones in reactor spaces. Who's going to know? I'm going to know, and I'm telling you to put it away." Brooks sighed dramatically, pocketed his phone. "You're such a—" The alarm cut him off. Not the general alarm, not the collision alarm, the reactor alarm, the one that meant something had gone catastrophically wrong. Evans's blood went cold. He'd heard this alarm before, 3 months ago, when Richard had saved them all. "What's that?" Brooks' swagger evaporated. "What's happening?" Evans was already moving, checking systems, reading data. "Secondary cooling loop failure. Reactor 1 is overheating." "Is that bad?" "It's very bad." Evans grabbed the comm. "Engineering control, this is Evans. We've got a secondary loop failure on reactor 1. Temperature rising fast." Rodriguez's voice came back tight. "Copy that. We're seeing it. Automated shutdown isn't responding. Manual override is locked out." "No, not again. This can't be happening again." "What do we do?" Brooks' voice cracked. No arrogance now, just fear. Evans thought fast. The mechanical overrides. Richard had taught him, but that was on reactor 2. Was the setup the same on reactor 1? It had to be. The Ford-class carriers were built to the same specs, same fail-safes, same hidden tunnels. "Brooks, listen to me. I need you to go to engineering control. Tell Rodriguez we need the original schematics. Tell her to look for the mechanical bypass access point for reactor 1. But I don't know where." "Figure it out." Run. Brooks ran. Whatever else he wasn't stupid. He understood the urgency. Evans watched the temperature gauge climb. 100 degrees, 110, 115. At 200, automatic safeties would trigger. Except the automatic safeties weren't working. At 300, they'd have to evacuate the reactor space. At 400, they'd have to evacuate the entire engineering section. At 500, the reactor would breach. They'd have maybe an hour before 500, maybe less. His hands shook. He touched the brass key in his pocket, felt its weight, its history. Chief Chen had faced this. Richard had faced this. Now it was his turn. Rodriguez's voice came through the comm. "Evans, we found the access point, Deck 2, Section 18, behind a false panel marked as electrical conduit." "Copy that. I'm going in." "Evans, wait. We need to get Mr. Marrow here. He's the only one who knows." "Richard's in San Diego with my father. By the time we fly him out, the reactor will breach. I'm the only one who knows these systems well enough to try." "Evans, you're not certified." "I don't need certification. I need the key." Evans was already moving. "Get a team to that access point. I'll be there in 2 minutes." He ran through the ship. Sailors jumped out of his way. Everyone could feel it. The wrongness. The ship was dying again. Brooks met him at the access point. A welding team was already cutting through the false panel. Brooks' face was white. "Corporal, what's happening?" "Same thing that happened 3 months ago. Cooling loop failure. If we don't manually restart it, the reactor breaches." "How do we restart it?" "We don't. I do." Evans looked at the panel being cut open. "You stay here. Monitor the radio. If I call for extraction, you get help immediately." "Why you? Why not someone else?" "Because I've done this before. Because I know what to do. Because—" Evans pulled out the brass key. "Because I carry this." Brooks stared at the key. "What is that?" "Something passed down from people who knew what service meant. Something that reminds me why I show up when things break." Evans met Brooks's eyes. "You wanted to know why I drink the Kool-Aid. This is why. Because when the lights go out, someone has to fix them. And today, that someone is me." The welding team broke through. The access tunnel opened. Hot air rushed out. Evans felt the heat and remembered the Roosevelt. Remembered the steam. Remembered thinking he was going to die. "Temperature in the tunnel," he asked Rodriguez over the radio. 120 degrees and climbing. "Evans, this is dangerous." "I know, but it's my job." He looked at Brooks one more time. "Watch and learn, kid. This is what service looks like." Evans climbed into the tunnel. The heat hit him like a fist. Worse than the Roosevelt. The tunnel was narrower, hotter, less ventilation. He could barely breathe. "Talk to me, Evans." Rodriguez's voice came through his radio. "What do you see?" "First junction, valve wheel visible, moving to engage." "Copy that. Temperature is 130 degrees. You need to work fast." Evans reached the first valve, fitted the brass key, pulled. The valve resisted. He pulled harder. His burned hands protested. The scars stretched and burned. "Come on," he whispered. "Work with me." The valve groaned, turned. 3 full rotations. First valve open, moving to second position. Negative Evans. Temperature just spiked to 145. The tunnel's getting too hot. Abort and come back. "Can't abort. Ship needs me to finish." "Evans, that's an order." "With respect, ma'am, I'm already in here. By the time I crawl back, the reactor will be critical. I'm finishing this." He crawled deeper. The heat was unbearable. His vision blurred. His hands were slick with sweat. Every breath felt like inhaling fire. He found the second valve, behind the sensor housing, just like Richard had described. He routed left through the narrow junction, barely fit. His shoulders scraped metal. The heat radiating through the walls burned through his uniform. He found the secondary valve, the 1962 stamp. Even through his blurred vision, he saw it. A piece of history, a piece of Chief Chen. Second valve engaged, opening now. The valve turned smooth, like it remembered him from the Roosevelt, like it knew his hands. Second valve open, moving to master control. Evans' temperature is 160 degrees. That's beyond safe limits. Get out of there. Almost done. He crawled to the master control valve. His body was shutting down. Heat exhaustion, dehydration. His muscles wouldn't respond properly. His thoughts were getting fuzzy. He touched the brass key, felt its weight, heard Chief Chen's voice in his head, heard Richard's voice, heard his father's voice. "You show up. You do the work. You honor the legacy." Evans fitted the key to the master control valve, started to turn it clockwise. The valve resisted. He pulled harder. Nothing. He pulled with everything he had. The key slipped. He almost lost it, caught it at the last second. "Brooks," he called into the radio. His voice was weak. "You there?" "I'm here, Corporal." "I need you to listen. If I don't make it out of here, I need you to understand something." "Don't talk like that." "Listen." Evans coughed, tasted blood. "This key I carry, it belonged to a man named Chief Thomas Chen. He sent a 23-year-old kid into a tunnel like this 62 years ago. That kid came back and spent his whole life honoring that trust." Evans reset the key, prepared to try again. "That kid became Richard Marrow. He passed this key to me, and if I don't make it, it goes to you. You understand?" "Corporal, I can't." "You can, you will, because you're going to learn what I learned. That service isn't about glory. It's about showing up when things break. It's about doing the hard thing because nobody else can." Evans pulled on the valve with everything he had left. His vision went dark at the edges. His lungs screamed. His heart felt like it was going to explode. And the valve turned. Click. The ship shuddered. Coolant flowed. Temperature gauges steadied. The reactor stabilized. "Flow restored," Rodriguez shouted. "Reactor temperature dropping. He did it. Evans did it." But Evans didn't hear. He'd collapsed in the tunnel, unconscious, body pushed beyond its limits. "Evans!" Rodriguez's voice came urgent. "Evans, respond." "Nothing. Get him out. Someone get him out." Brooks didn't hesitate. He stripped off his shirt, grabbed a flashlight, and crawled into the tunnel, into the heat, into the danger, into hell. He found Evans unconscious near the master control valve, the brass key still clutched in his fist. Brooks grabbed him under the arms and pulled. Evans was bigger, heavier. Brooks's muscles screamed, but he kept pulling. He dragged Evans through the tunnel, inch by inch, fighting the heat, fighting his own exhaustion, fighting the voice in his head that said to leave him and save himself. But he didn't leave him, because he'd learned something in that moment. When Evans had looked at him and explained why he carried the key, why he showed up, why service mattered. Brooks pulled Evans out of the tunnel. Medical was waiting. They grabbed Evans. Started treatment. Heat stroke, dehydration, second-degree burns on his hands and arms. Rodriguez looked at Brooks. You saved him. Brooks looked at his own hands. Burned now, shaking. He would have done it for me. How do you know? Because that's what service means. And right there, that moment, Brooks stopped being the arrogant kid who thought he knew everything. He became something else. Someone else. Evans woke up in medical 4 hours later. His father was there. Somehow his father was there. Still walking with a cane, but there. Dad? Hey, son. Marcus gripped his hand. You scared the hell out of us. How did you... Admiral Thompson called. Said you'd crawled into another tunnel. Said you'd saved another ship. Said you'd nearly died doing it. Marcus's voice shook. So I got on a plane and came. Because that's what fathers do when their sons are heroes. I'm not a hero. Yes, you are. Whether you admit it or not. Marcus squeezed his hand. Richard called too, from San Diego. Said to tell you he's proud. Said you've earned the key 10 times over. Evans looked at his burned hands. Where is the key? Brooks has it. He's been carrying it since they pulled you out. Won't let it go. Brooks. The kid who saved you. He pulled you out of that tunnel when you collapsed. Risked his own life to do it. Marcus smiled. Sound familiar? Evans closed his eyes. I need to talk to him. Later. Right now you need to rest. But Evans couldn't rest. Not until he'd talked to Brooks. Not until he'd passed forward what Richard had passed to him. 2 days later, Evans was cleared to leave medical. Still weak, still hurting, but alive. He found Brooks on the flight deck, standing at the rail, staring at the ocean. Brooks. Brooks turned. His hands were bandaged. His face showed new maturity, like he'd aged 5 years in 5 days. Corporal, you're okay. Thanks to you. Evans moved to stand beside him. I heard what you did, how you pulled me out. You would have done it for me. How do you know? Brooks pulled the brass key from his pocket, held it out. Because you carry this, and now I understand what it means. Evans looked at the key, at Brooks's burned hands, at the change in his eyes. Keep it, Evans said. Brooks blinked. What? The key. It's yours now, you earned it. But Richard gave it to you. And now I'm giving it to you, that's how it works. The key gets passed forward, from someone who understands to someone who's ready to learn. Evans gripped Brooks's shoulder. You saved my life. You crawled into hell when you didn't have to. You showed up when things broke. That's what the key means. That's who deserves to carry it. Brooks stared at the key, then at Evans. I don't deserve this. Neither did I. Neither did Richard. Neither did Chief Chen. But we carried it anyway. Because someone trusted us. Because someone believed we could become what we needed to be. Evans's voice was firm. Now I'm trusting you. I'm believing in you. Don't make me regret it. Brooks closed his fist around the key. I won't, I promise. Good. Now let me tell you a story. About a man named Chief Thomas Chen. About a steam tunnel on the USS Enterprise. About a legacy that's been passed down for 62 years. Evans told Brooks everything. About Chief Chen sending Richard into the tunnel. About Tommy Peterson who didn't come back. About Sarah Chen who became a nurse to make up for not saving her father. About Marcus Evans who took shrapnel in Fallujah. About every ghost they all carried. About what it meant to serve something bigger than yourself. Brooks listened, really listened, and by the end, tears ran down his face. I was such an idiot, he said. The things I said, the way I acted. You were young. You didn't understand. Now you do. That's what matters. What do I do with this? How do I live up to it? You show up, you do the work. You honor the people who came before by being better than they were. Evans smiled. And when the time comes, you pass it forward. You find someone young and arrogant and scared, someone who needs to learn what you learned, and you trust them with it. Brooks nodded slowly. Okay, I can do that. I know you can. They stood together in silence. Two Marines, two men who'd crawled through hell, two links in a chain that stretched back 62 years. And somewhere Chief Thomas Chen was smiling, because his legacy had been passed forward one more time, because knowledge hadn't died, because the key was in good hands. Evans's phone buzzed. Text from Richard. Heard what you did. Heard you passed the key to Brooks. Good choice. The legacy is secure. Proud of you, kid. Richard. Evans smiled. Typed back, learned from the best. Thank you for everything. Richard's response came fast. Don't thank me. Thank Chief Chen. And pass it forward. That's all any of us can do. Evans pocketed his phone. Looked at Brooks. You ready to get back to work? Yeah, I'm ready. Good. Because being the keeper of the key means you've got responsibilities now. Means you've got to be the example. Means you've got to show other Marines what service looks like. I will. I promise I will. And Evans believed him. Because he'd seen the change. He'd watched Brooks transform from an arrogant kid to a Marine who understood what mattered. Just like he'd transformed. Just like Richard had transformed. Just like every person who'd ever carried the key and understood what it meant. 2 weeks later, Evans got orders. Transfer to Quantico, instructor position, teaching young Marines about leadership and service. Rodriguez found him packing. You're leaving, new assignment, teaching. Makes sense. You've got a lot to teach. She paused. Evans. I wanted to say something. 3 months ago, you were the Marine I worried about most. Today, you're the one I'd trust with my life. That transformation, it's rare. Hold on to it. I will, ma'am. I promise. And Evans. Thank Richard for me, for showing all of us what real strength looks like. I will. Evans's last night on the Ford, he stood on the flight deck, watching the ocean, thinking about everything that had changed, everything he'd learned. Brooks found him there. Corporal Evans, can I talk to you? Of course. I just wanted to say thank you for trusting me, for giving me the key, for teaching me what service means. Brooks's voice was steady, strong. I won't let you down. I know you won't. And someday when I find the right person, I'll pass it forward, just like you told me. Evans smiled. That's all I can ask. They shook hands. 2 Marines. 2 men who understood. 2 keepers of a legacy that would never die as long as someone was willing to carry it forward. Evans left the Ford the next morning. His father met him at the airport. Still walking with a cane, but stronger now, healthier. How does it feel? Marcus asked. How does what feel? Passing the torch, giving the key to someone else. Evans thought about that. It feels right. Like I'm part of something that doesn't end. Like everything I learned, everything Chief Chen and Richard and you taught me, it keeps going. That's because it does. That's what legacy means. It's not about you. It's about what you pass forward. They drove home together. Father and son, both scarred, both changed, both understanding what it meant to serve something bigger than themselves. And in San Diego, Richard Marrow sat in his kitchen, drinking coffee, looking at a photo of Sarah, thinking about Chief Chen, about Tommy Peterson, about all the ghosts he'd carried for 62 years. His phone rang. Evans. Richard. Jake. I heard you gave the key to Brooks. I did. He earned it. Good. That's good. Richard's voice was warm. You did well, son. You learned the lesson. You passed it forward. That's all any of us can do. Thank you, Richard, for everything, for teaching me, for trusting me, for showing me what real strength looks like. It's not me you should thank. It's Chief Chen. He started this whole thing. All I did was keep it going. And now I've kept it going. And Brooks will keep it going. And someday someone else will. That's right. That's exactly right. Richard smiled. The legacy doesn't die as long as someone remembers, as long as someone shows up, as long as someone turns the valve when things break. I'll remember. I promise. I know you will, son. I know you will. They hung up. Richard set down his phone, looked at Sarah's photo again. We did it, love. We kept the promise. We passed it forward. Chief Chen would be proud. And somewhere in some place beyond understanding, Chief Thomas Chen and Tommy Peterson and Sarah Chen and Danny Walsh and that 17-year-old Iraqi soldier, all the ghosts, they smiled. Because the legacy was secure. Because knowledge hadn't died. Because someone was showing up when things broke. And they would keep showing up. Generation after generation. Marine after Marine. Sailor after sailor. As long as someone carried the key and understood what it meant. As long as someone remembered that service isn't about glory. It's about showing up in the dark and doing the hard thing because nobody else can. That's what the key meant. That's what it would always mean. And that's what Jake Evans had finally learned. 5 years passed. Evans became one of the most respected instructors at Quantico. Young Marines hung on his every word, not because he was loud or charismatic, because he was quiet, real. And when he spoke about service, they knew he'd lived it. He never mentioned the key, never told the story unless someone asked. But somehow, they always asked. They sensed he carried something they needed to understand. Brooks became a sergeant, led his own squad, carried the brass key every day, trained his Marines the way Evans had trained him, with patience, with respect, with understanding that transformation takes time. Marcus recovered fully, walked without the cane eventually, started volunteering at the VA hospital, helping other vets process what service had cost them. Catherine worked beside him, both of them healing others while healing themselves. And Richard turned 90, moved slower, remembered less, but his eyes still lit up when someone mentioned the Enterprise, when someone asked about Chief Chen, when someone wanted to know how to turn a valve in the dark. Evans called him every Sunday, just to talk, just to check in, just to make sure the old man knew he wasn't forgotten. One Sunday, Richard's voice sounded different, weaker, tired in a way that went beyond physical exhaustion. Richard, you okay? I'm tired, Jake. So tired. I think... He paused. I think I'm ready. Evan's chest tightened. Ready for what? To stop fighting. To join Sarah. To rest. Richard's voice was peaceful. I've done my part. The key is in good hands. The legacy continues. I can let go now. Don't talk like that. You've got years left. Jake, listen to me. I'm 90 years old. I've saved ships. I've taught young sailors. I've passed the knowledge forward. I've honored Chief Chen and Tommy Peterson and everyone who came before. Richard took a breath. I'm tired of hurting, tired of being alone. I want to go home. Evans couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. I need you to promise me something, Richard said. Anything. When I'm gone, I want you to gather everyone. Marcus, Catherine, Brooks, Commander Chen, Rodriguez, everyone who was part of this story. I want you to tell them the whole truth about Chief Chen, about the legacy, about why it matters. I can do that. And Jake, I want you to find one more person, someone young, someone who doesn't think they're special, someone who needs to learn that quiet strength matters more than loud pride. Who? You'll know when you meet them. Trust your instincts. Chief Chen trusted his. I trusted mine. Now it's your turn. They talked for another hour. About Sarah. About the Enterprise. About that first tunnel 67 years ago. About everything Richard had seen and done and learned. When they finally hung up, Evans sat alone in his office. Tears ran down his face. He knew what was coming. Knew Richard was saying goodbye. 3 days later, the call came. Catherine's voice breaking. Jake, it's Richard. He passed away this morning, in his sleep. Peaceful. Evans closed his eyes. I'm coming. I'll be there today. He flew to San Diego, found his parents at Richard's house. Going through his things, finding memories in every drawer and closet, Marcus held up a photo. Young Richard in his Navy uniform, standing beside Chief Chen, both of them smiling, both of them not knowing what was coming. That one of them would crawl through hell, that one of them would send him there, that both of them would create a legacy that lasted 7 decades. He kept everything, Marcus said. Every letter Sarah wrote him, every commendation, every photo, every piece of his life preserved. Catherine found a box in the closet, opened it. Inside was Richard's original Navy uniform, the one he'd worn on the Enterprise, still scorched, still stained with oil and sweat and history. "Look," she whispered. She pulled something from the pocket, a piece of paper, yellowed, folded carefully. She opened it. It was a letter, written in shaky handwriting, dated 1963. "Richard, if you're reading this, I'm already gone. Heart probably gave out like the doc said it would. Don't mourn me too long. I lived a good life. Saved some ships, trained some sailors, did my part. But I need you to do something for me. Keep the knowledge alive. Don't let what we learned die with our generation. Pass it forward. Teach the young ones. Make sure they understand that technology fails, but knowledge endures. You're the keeper now. Don't let me down. Chief Thomas Chen." Catherine's hands shook. He carried this letter for 60 years, never told anyone, just carried it. Evans took the letter, read it again, felt the weight of it, the responsibility, the trust. He didn't let Chief Chen down, Evans said. He kept the promise. He passed it forward. And now we have to keep passing it. The funeral was small. Military honors, flag folded, 3-volley salute, a bugler playing taps. Richard was buried next to Sarah, finally together again. Admiral Thompson attended, Commander Chen, Rodriguez from the Ford. Brooks flew in from overseas. Dozens of sailors Richard had trained over the years. All of them there to honor the man who'd saved their ships and taught them what service meant. After the service, they gathered at Richard's house. Evans told them the whole story. From Chief Chen sending Richard into the tunnel in 1963, to Richard saving the Ford in 2025, to Evans saving the Roosevelt, to Brooks pulling Evans out of the tunnel on Reactor 1. He showed them the letter from Chief Chen, showed them Richard's scorched uniform, showed them photos of the Enterprise and the Ford and the Roosevelt. "This is our legacy," Evans said. "This is what Richard fought to preserve. The knowledge, the understanding, the truth that service matters more than pride, that showing up matters more than being perfect, that quiet strength changes the world more than loud glory." Thompson stood. Richard Marrow saved thousands of lives across 7 decades. But his real gift wasn't saving ships. It was teaching us how to save ourselves, how to be better than we thought we could be, how to honor the people who came before by being worthy of what they gave us. Brooks spoke next. "Corporal Evans gave me the key 5 years ago. I've carried it every day since. Every time I touch it, I remember what he taught me, what Richard taught him, what Chief Chen taught Richard, that we're all links in a chain, that the chain only stays strong if we each do our part." He pulled out the brass key, held it up so everyone could see. "This key has opened valves on the Enterprise, the Ford, the Roosevelt. It's saved thousands of lives. It's been carried by heroes, and now it's my turn to carry it forward, to honor Richard, to honor Chief Chen, to honor everyone who trusted me with it." Catherine wiped tears. "My grandfather, Chief Chen, he was a good man. Tough, fair, believed in people even when they didn't believe in themselves. He saw something in Richard that nobody else saw. A scared kid who could become a hero if someone just showed him how." She looked at Evans. "And Richard saw the same thing in you, Jake. He saw past the arrogance to the man you could become. Just like you saw it in Brooks. Just like Brooks will see it in whoever comes next." Marcus stood slowly. His cane was gone, but he still moved carefully. I spent 20 years angry at Richard. Angry that he'd made service look noble when I knew how much it cost. Angry that he'd passed the burden to another generation. But I was wrong. His voice strengthened. Service isn't a burden. It's a gift. The burden is living with yourself when you could have helped but didn't. When you could have shown up but stayed home. When you could have made a difference but chose comfort instead. He looked at his son. Jake, I'm proud of you. Prouder than I can say. You took the anger I carried and transformed it into something beautiful. You took the legacy Richard gave you and made it stronger. That's what a real man does. That's what a real Marine does. Evans couldn't speak. Just nodded. Just let the tears fall. The gathering lasted hours. People telling stories about Richard, about his patience, his wisdom, his absolute refusal to quit even when quitting made sense. As the sun set, Evans found himself alone on Richard's back porch, looking at the sky, thinking about everything he'd learned, everything he'd become. Brooks found him there. Corporal Evans. Jake, can I ask you something? Of course. How do I know when it's time to pass the key forward? Evans thought about that. You'll know. You'll meet someone who reminds you of who you used to be. Someone arrogant and scared and absolutely certain they know everything. And you'll see in them what I saw in you. What Richard saw in me. The potential to become something more. What if I'm wrong? What if I choose the wrong person? Then you'll be in good company. Everyone who's ever carried that key has doubted themselves. But Chief Chen chose Richard. Richard chose me. I chose you. And every choice was right because we trusted our instincts and backed it up with teaching. Brooks nodded slowly. Okay, I can do that. I know you can. They stood in comfortable silence. Two men who understood. Two links in a chain that stretched back 67 years and would stretch forward into infinity. And you need to hear what happened next. Because this is where everything comes full circle. A week later, Evans got a call from Thompson. Jake, I need you for something. New project. Training program for young officers. Teaching them about mechanical systems and manual overrides. Making sure Richard's knowledge doesn't die. I'm in, whatever you need. Good, because there's someone I want you to meet. Young ensign. Fresh out of Annapolis. Smart as hell, but arrogant. Thinks technology is the answer to everything. Reminds me of someone. Evans smiled. When do I meet them? Tomorrow, my office. 0900. Evans showed up early. Waited in Thompson's office. The Admiral walked in with a young woman, maybe 23. Confident, bright eyes, firm handshake. Ensign Sarah Peterson meets Sergeant Jake Evans. Jake Sarah is the top of her class in nuclear engineering. Graduated with honors. Already published 2 papers on reactor efficiency. Sarah smiled. Pleasure to meet you, Sergeant. Evans shook her hand. Felt something click. Peterson. That's an interesting name. Family name. Goes back a few generations. Actually, I had a great uncle who served on the Enterprise. The original nuclear carrier. Died in a reactor incident in 1963. Evans's heart stopped. Tommy Peterson. Sarah's eyes widened. You know about him. I know everything about him. He crawled into a steam tunnel alongside Richard Marrow. Went right when Richard went left. The steam got him before he could reach his valve. Sarah sat down hard. Nobody talks about him. My family, we know he died. We know it was classified, but we never knew details. That's because the details were too painful, too real. Your great-uncle died saving 5,000 men. Died doing his duty. Died so others could live. How do you know this? Evans pulled out his phone. Showed her photos of Chief Chen, of Richard, of the brass key. Told her the whole story, from 1963 to today. From Tommy Peterson dying in a tunnel to Brooks pulling Evans out of one. Sarah listened, her eyes filled with tears. My great-uncle was a hero. He was, and he's been carried by everyone who's held that key since. Richard carried him for 62 years. I carry him now. Brooks carries him. And if you're willing to learn, you'll carry him too. What do you mean? Admiral Thompson thinks you need to learn about mechanical systems, about the old ways, about what happens when technology fails and all you have is knowledge and courage. Evans leaned forward. I think you need to learn about your great-uncle, about the man who died so others could live, about the legacy he started. Sarah wiped her eyes. I want to learn. I want to honor him. Good. Then let me tell you about a man named Chief Thomas Chen, about a brass key, about what it means to show up when the lights go out and trust that your training will be enough. And that's where this story really begins. Not ends. Begins. Because legacy doesn't end. It just keeps moving forward through every person willing to carry it. Evans spent the next 6 months training Sarah, teaching her the mechanical overrides, the manual systems, the old ways that saved lives when computers failed. She was a fast learner, humble despite her intelligence, hungry for knowledge. Everything Evans had hoped Brooks would become. Everything Brooks had become. One day they were in the training facility, working on a mock reactor system. Sarah was practicing valve sequences, getting faster, more confident. Why do you do this? She asked. Why spend so much time teaching old systems that probably won't ever be used? Because they will be used. Technology always fails eventually, and when it does, someone needs to know what to do. Evans watched her work. Your great-uncle knew that. He died proving it. Now you're honoring him by learning it. Sarah turned the final valve. The mock system stabilized. She'd done it perfectly. How do you feel? Evans asked. Like I just talked to my great-uncle. Like he taught me something nobody else could. That's because he did. Through me. Through Richard. Through Chief Chen. Through every person who's carried this knowledge forward. Evans smiled. That's what legacy means. It's not about glory. It's about connection. About being part of something that doesn't end. 6 months later, Sarah graduated from the program. Top of her class. Assigned to the USS Nimitz. Evans attended the ceremony. So did Brooks. So did Thompson. After the ceremony, Evans pulled Sarah aside. I have something for you. He held out a small box. Sarah opened it. Inside was a brass valve key. Not the original. A replica, but made from the same mold, same design, same weight. This is yours, Evans said. Made from the original plans, carries the same history. Your great-uncle's sacrifice, Chief Chen's wisdom, Richard's courage, everything we've talked about for 6 months. Sarah took the key. Her hands shook. I don't deserve this. That's what everyone says. But you do. You've earned it. You've learned the lessons. You've honored your great-uncle. Now you carry him forward. What about the original key? Brooks still has it. He does. And he'll pass it forward when the time comes. But now there are 2. Because the legacy is growing. Because more people need to learn. Because your great-uncle's sacrifice demands it. Sarah closed her fist around the key. I won't let him down. I won't let you down. I know you won't. And Evans believed it. Believed she would carry the legacy forward. Believed she would teach others. Believed the chain would continue unbroken. 2 years later, Evans got promoted. Master Sergeant, more responsibility, more young Marines to train, more opportunities to pass forward what he'd learned. Brooks made captain, led his own company, carried the original brass key every day, trained his Marines the way Evans had trained him. Sarah became a lieutenant, served on 3 different carriers, taught mechanical override procedures to every engineer who would listen, carried her key, honored her great-uncle. The legacy spread. Not because anyone demanded it, because people saw the value, saw that knowledge mattered, saw that quiet strength changed the world more than loud pride. And then 10 years after Richard's death, something happened that proved everything they'd been teaching. The USS John F. Kennedy's newest carrier in the fleet suffered a catastrophic failure. Digital systems crashed. Automated backups failed. The ship was dead in the water off the coast of Africa. Hostile territory. No support nearby. The chief engineer panicked. He'd been trained on computers, knew nothing about mechanical systems, didn't know about the hidden tunnels or the manual overrides or the brass keys that could save them. But his assistant did. Lieutenant Sarah Peterson. She'd been transferred to the Kennedy 2 months earlier. Brought her knowledge with her. Brought her key. Brought Tommy Peterson's legacy. When the engineer froze, Sarah stepped up. "Sir, I know what to do." "How could you possibly?" "Because I was trained by people who remembered. People who knew that technology fails. People who built in fail-safes that no computer can access." She pulled out her brass key. "People who gave me this and taught me how to use it." She found the access panel, crawled into the tunnel, turned the valves, sealed the leaks, restarted the cooling loop, saved the ship. 1,100 sailors went home because Tommy Peterson's great-niece had learned the lessons her great-uncle died teaching. When Evans heard the news, he called Brooks. "Did you hear? I heard. Sarah saved the Kennedy, used everything we taught her. Tommy Peterson's legacy lives on." It does, and it will, as long as we keep teaching, as long as we keep passing it forward. Evans hung up, sat in his office, thought about Chief Chen, about Richard, about his father, about everyone who'd contributed to this moment. They'd done it. They'd kept the promise. They'd preserved the knowledge. They'd honored the dead by teaching the living. The legacy was secure. 3 months later, Evans got a visitor at Quantico, an old man, walking with a cane, tired but determined. It took Evans a moment to recognize him. Rodriguez. The former chief engineer from the Ford smiled. "Not Rodriguez, just John now. Retired 3 years ago. But I needed to see you." "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. Everything's right." Rodriguez sat down heavily. "I heard about Sarah saving the Kennedy. Heard she used the knowledge Richard taught you, that you taught her, that the legacy continues. It does. I need to tell you something. Something I should have said 10 years ago when Richard died." Rodriguez's voice shook. "I was wrong. When he first came aboard the Ford, I thought he was just an old man living in the past. I thought the old ways were obsolete. I thought computers had made knowledge unnecessary. You weren't alone. We all thought that. But I was the chief engineer. I should have known better. Should have respected what came before. Should have protected the knowledge instead of dismissing it." Rodriguez looked at Evans. "Richard saved us because I failed, because I'd let the knowledge die, because I'd trusted technology more than wisdom. But you learned. You changed. That's what matters. I learned because Richard showed me, because you showed me, because Brooks and Sarah and everyone else showed me that the old ways matter. That knowledge is the only thing that never fails." Rodriguez pulled something from his pocket, another brass key, old, worn, but clearly from the same era as the original. This was Chief Chen's personal key, the one he carried every day. When he died, it went to his daughter Sarah Chen, Richard's wife. When she died, it went to your mother. And now, he held it out. Now it goes to you, the keeper of the legacy, the teacher of the next generation. Evans took the key, felt the weight of it, the history, Chief Chen's actual key, the one that had started everything. "Rodriguez, I can't." "Yes, you can, because you're doing what Chief Chen did, what Richard did, what your father did. You're teaching young sailors that service matters more than pride, that showing up matters more than being perfect. That quiet strength changes the world." Evans closed his fist around the key. "I'll honor it. I promise. I know you will. That's why you're getting it." Rodriguez stood to leave, paused at the door. "Jake, one more thing. Thank you for teaching me, for showing me what I'd lost, for helping me understand that wisdom doesn't die unless we let it. Thank you for being willing to learn." Rodriguez nodded, left. Evans sat alone with Chief Chen's key. The original. The one that had been carried for 70 years. The one that represented everything they'd fought to preserve. He called his father. "Dad, I need to tell you something." "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. Rodriguez just gave me Chief Chen's personal key. The one your grandmother carried. The one Mom inherited." Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then, "I gave it to Rodriguez 15 years ago. Before you enlisted. Before any of this started. I told him to keep it safe until someone earned it." "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because you had to earn it without knowing it existed. You had to become the man who deserved it through your actions, not through expectation." Marcus's voice was firm. "And you did. You earned it 10 times over. Now you carry Chief Chen's actual key, the one he used to save the Enterprise, the one that started this whole legacy." Evans couldn't speak, couldn't process it. "Son, you're the keeper now. Not just of the knowledge, of the source, of the beginning. Chief Chen's trust flows through you to everyone you teach. That's a responsibility. That's an honor. That's everything we fought for." "I understand." "Good. Now use it. Teach with it. Pass it forward when the time comes. Keep the chain unbroken." They hung up. Evans sat with both keys now. Chief Chen's original, Sarah's replica. 2 pieces of brass that represented 70 years of service, 70 years of teaching, 70 years of honoring the dead by protecting the living. And Evans understood, finally, completely, what this all meant. It wasn't about the keys, it wasn't about the tunnels. It wasn't about the reactors or the ships or the technology. It was about people, about trust, about one generation teaching the next, about refusing to let wisdom die, about showing up when things broke and trusting that your training would be enough. That's what Chief Chen had started. That's what Richard had continued. That's what Evans would carry forward. That's what Brooks and Sarah and everyone who came after would preserve. The legacy wasn't about being perfect. It was about being present, about caring enough to teach, about trusting enough to learn, about understanding that service wasn't a burden, it was a gift. 20 years after Richard saved the Ford Evans retired from the Marines. Master Gunnery Sergeant, highest enlisted rank, decorated, respected, but more than that, remembered. Remembered as the man who'd taught thousands of young Marines what service meant, what quiet strength looked like, what legacy demanded. Brooks was a colonel now, still carried the original brass key, still taught his Marines the old ways, still honored Chief Chen and Tommy Peterson and Richard and everyone who'd come before. Sarah was a commander, chief engineer on the Ford, the ship Richard had saved. She'd come full circle. Now she taught young engineers the same lessons Evans had taught her. Used Chief Chen's methods. Richard's patience. Tommy Peterson's sacrifice. The legacy lived on. Marcus passed away peacefully at 78. Heart failure. But he died knowing his son had become the man he'd always hoped for. Died knowing the legacy was secure. Died knowing Chief Chen would be proud. Catherine spoke at his funeral. "My husband carried ghosts his whole life, Danny Walsh, the men he killed in Fallujah, the weight of service. But he also carried hope. Hope that his son would learn from his mistakes, would do better, would honor the sacrifice of everyone who came before." She looked at Evans, and Jake did. He became the man his father always knew he could be. He carried the legacy forward. He taught others. He made Chief Chen's sacrifice matter for another generation. After the funeral, Evans stood at his father's grave, next to his mother, both of them quiet, both of them thinking about everything Marcus had been, everything he'd taught, everything he'd given. "He was proud of you," Catherine said. "You know that, right?" "I know. He used to tell me, Katie, Jake's doing what I couldn't. He's taking the pain and transforming it into something beautiful. He's proof that legacy matters, that service isn't just sacrifice, it's hope." Evans wiped his eyes. "I learned it from him, from you, from Richard, from everyone who showed me what quiet strength looks like. And now you're teaching others, just like they taught you. That's all any of us can do. Show up, teach, trust the next generation to carry it forward. Catherine squeezed his hand. Chief Chen would be so proud. His legacy, it's alive. It's growing. It's changing the world one sailor at a time. It is, and it will keep growing. As long as someone remembers, as long as someone teaches, as long as someone shows up when things break. 5 years later, on the 70th anniversary of Chief Chen's death, the Navy dedicated a new training facility, the Chief Thomas Chen Center for Maritime Excellence, a place where young sailors learned the old ways, where mechanical systems were taught alongside digital, where knowledge was preserved and passed forward. Evans was the keynote speaker, now 70 years old, retired, but still sharp, still teaching, still carrying Chief Chen's key. He stood at the podium, looked at the crowd, hundreds of sailors, officers, engineers, all of them there to honor a man most of them had never met. Chief Thomas Chen died in 1965, Evans began. Heart attack, sudden, tragic. But his death wasn't the end, it was the beginning. Because Chief Chen had done something most people never do. He'd passed his knowledge forward. He'd taught a scared 23-year-old kid how to save a ship, how to crawl through hell, how to trust that training would be enough. Evans pulled out the brass key, Chief Chen's key, the original. This key saved the Enterprise in 1963. It saved the Ford in 2025. It saved the Roosevelt. It saved the Kennedy. It saved ships I've never heard of, because the knowledge spread farther than any of us imagined. He held it up so everyone could see. But this key isn't magic. It's just brass, just metal. What makes it special is what it represents: trust, knowledge. The understanding that we're all links in a chain, that what we learn, we must teach, that what we receive, we must pass forward, that service isn't about us, it's about everyone who comes after. Evans looked at the crowd, at young sailors who would carry this knowledge into the future, at officers who would lead them, at engineers who would teach them. Chief Chen saved 5,000 men by sending a kid into a tunnel. That kid became Richard Marrow. Richard taught me. I taught Sarah Peterson, Tommy Peterson's great niece. Sarah taught hundreds more. Those hundreds will teach thousands. And those thousands will keep teaching until knowledge never dies, until legacy is eternal. He paused. Let that sink in. That's what this center represents. The promise that Chief Chen made 70 years ago. The promise Richard kept. The promise we all keep, that we will show up, we will teach, we will pass it forward, no matter what. The crowd erupted in applause, standing ovation, every sailor on their feet, every officer saluting, every engineer understanding that they were part of something bigger than themselves. After the ceremony, a young ensign approached Evans, maybe 22, nervous, uncertain. Sir, can I ask you something? Of course. How do I know if I'm good enough to carry this legacy, to be part of this? Evans smiled, pulled out Chief Chen's key. You're already part of it. You showed up. You want to learn. You understand that knowledge matters. That's all Chief Chen ever asked. That's all any of us ask. But what if I fail? What if I'm not strong enough? Then you'll be in good company. Everyone who's ever carried this key has failed, has doubted themselves, has been terrified they'd let everyone down. Evans pressed the key into the ensign's hand. But they showed up anyway. They did the work anyway. They honored the legacy anyway. That's what makes you strong enough, not being perfect, just being present. The ensign stared at the key. Sir, I can't take this. You're not taking it, you're borrowing it. Touch it, feel it. Remember what it represents. Then give it back and go be the sailor Chief Chen believed you could be. The ensign held the key for a long moment, then handed it back. Thank you, sir. I won't forget this. Good. Now go learn. Go teach. Go show up. That's all any of us can do. The ensign left. Evans watched him go. watched him walk toward his future, toward becoming the next link in the chain. And Evans knew. The legacy was secure. The knowledge was alive. The chain was unbroken. Chief Thomas Chen had died 70 years ago, but he lived on through every sailor who learned the old ways, through every engineer who preserved the knowledge, through every person who understood that showing up mattered more than being perfect. He lived on through Richard Marrow, through Jake Evans, through Tyler Brooks, through Sarah Peterson, through thousands of sailors who'd learned that quiet strength changed the world, and he would keep living on. Generation after generation, sailor after sailor, teacher after teacher. As long as someone carried the key and understood what it meant. That service isn't about glory, it's about showing up. That legacy isn't about the past, it's about the future. That strength isn't about being loud, it's about being present when the lights go out and trusting that your training will be enough. That's what Chief Thomas Chen taught Richard Marrow in 1963. That's what Richard taught Jake Evans in 2025. That's what Jake taught Sarah and Brooks and thousands of others. And that's what they would all keep teaching until the end of time. Because the key doesn't belong to one person. It belongs to everyone willing to carry it. Because the legacy doesn't end with death. It lives on through teaching. Because quiet strength doesn't fade. It grows with every person who learns that showing up is the only thing that matters. Chief Chen knew it. Richard knew it. Marcus knew it. Jake knew it. And now so do you.